Day one of the St. Louis Rapid Blitz played online for the very first time. 10 of the world's top players brought their virtual A-game center stage to try to win one of the last tournaments of a thrilling summer season. Round 2 saw a shocking disconnect that caused world champion Magnus Carlsen to lose against Jan Nepomniachtchi, and that left the door open to Aronian and Harikrishna to surge into a two-way tie for first. The intense fighting continues at an exciting rapid pace. Day 2 of non-stop action coming up next.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the St. Louis Rapid Blitz. I'm Jennifer Shahade, and I'm here with Grandmasters Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley to call day 2 of this thrill fest. Hey, Yaz, Maurice, what's up?
Hello, Jennifer. Hello, Maurice. It's a pleasure, as always, to be with you both, calling all the action. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show, and thank you for joining us and sharing your day. Well, day 1 was a game of thrills and spills, but also connections. Harikrishna went to the home of David Navarra because his connection was stronger, something that maybe world champion Magnus Carlsen regrets that he didn't do, as he disconnected and lost, allowing the former mentioned Harikrishna to share first. Maurice, quite an eventful day 1.
It was indeed eventful. You talked about that disconnect. That's big. We really don't like seeing that happen. Of course, in the age we live in, it does. And it's not even the world champion who is immune to this happening. Of course, now Aronian and Harikrishna share first place. Even if Magnus, if you think about it, had drawn that game, he still wouldn't have been in first. These two players are playing excellent chess, and we'll see whether or not they can keep it up.
Well, let's take a look at all the standings, Jen.
Yeah, well, here they are, guys. Indeed, we have these two great players at the top of the leaderboard, Aronian, Harikrishna, both with 5 points, 2 wins and a draw yesterday. Wesley So and Jan Nepomniachtchi also doing well with 4 points. Magnus Carlsen right there with an even score, but a very sour taste from that round 2 debacle.
Absolutely. And our schedule for today, Jen?
The schedule is 3 rounds a day in the rapid portion, and they start every hour and 15 minutes. So we'll have 3 of those today, 3 more tomorrow. That'll close out the rapid portion, but don't forget, this is a combined score tournament. They are not 2 separate tournaments. So you'll carry over your score from the rapid and go into Blitz, which will close out this thrilling event. And that brings us to our format, which is indeed going to show you why these rapid games are so important. Well, they're double weighted, so 2 points at stake for each rapid game. Those of you who are watching the 960 along with tournament co-leader Harikrishna, who said he had his eyes peeled to our commentary, so big thank you to him. The time control is a little bit different. Game 25 with a 5-second increment, whereas in the 960 event, we played game 20 with a 10-second increment.
And the leaders, it looks like they're going to do some clashing. Maurice, take us through our...
Most of the time, this is where you want to get those points. And so it's critical every single day. And this day 2 is going to be even more critical as we see some dramatic clashes right out the gate. Let's begin with one of our leaders, Aronian. Levon with a great start. He did have a lucky hiccup game, we have to mention, against Christian, where he was completely busted, but managed somehow to survive that and even turn the tables. Well, boy, he'd better look to survive this first opponent he has, one Magnus Carlsen, who will be looking to knock him off his perch. And then he'll play his co-leader, Harikrishna, in round 5 before closing out the day with the youngster, Xiong. And we know that Harikrishna, he's playing Levon in the middle round. Who does he play, however, to start the day? It will be one Jan Nepomniachtchi, and he'll close it out with Magnus Carlsen. That's not two gangsters you want to have to face, especially given that he's going to have to play Levon Aronian in round 5. What a lineup. You can pick him any harder than that. Will he be able to maintain his lead given this murderer's row that he will have to face? And of course, the one person who is in both draws is Magnus Carlsen, and we've got to pay attention to him. We've already mentioned he is playing Levon in round 4 and Pentala in round 6. In round 5, he'll be playing against America's Lanier Dominguez. Magnus had that bad game. Well, it was just a disconnect. It looked like the position was more or less drawn, so he would have gotten 1 point, not 2, and that's why we say he wouldn't be in the lead right now, even if he didn't disconnect. But still, he wouldn't be a full point behind, a full 2 points behind the leaders. Will he be able to turn things around today? His destiny in his own hands. That's where he likes it, to be able to beat the guys who he needs to. So this would be a big deal. I see a little bit of a smile on his face right now. He seems incredibly relaxed at the moment. That doesn't really bode well, guys, for the rest of the field.
Absolutely. Speaking of the rest of the field, Jen, let's take a look at the pairings for round 4.
Here they are. Magnus against Levon and Harikrishna versus Xiong. Obviously, 2 games that we'll have our eyes peeled on, but there's lots of fun pairings here. I mean, I'm really looking forward to Blitz legends Alexander Grishuk and Nakamura facing off against the teens. The teens played so well in their head-to-head battle yesterday, I got to tell you. I was just so enthralled by the level of play they were executing in a 1-minute game, with a 5-second increment, granted. So it'll be interesting to see what they bring to these incredible Blitz players today. This is Rapid, not Blitz. They'll get a chance to play actual Blitz twice against everyone in the field as well. But you know what? The thing about Rapid is, if it's an interesting game and a rich opening, it ends up turning into some kind of Blitz battle in most of the games.
For sure. And Jen, what are they playing for?
Big bucks here at stake at the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. Big shout out to the St. Louis Chess Club and to the Singfields, Dr. Heaney and Rex Singfield, for making this possible. $250,000 in total prizes, including $50K for first. You know, it is a difficult time for many people all over the world. And so it's really nice to see the sponsorship and the support of chess persist through these times.
Extraordinary.
Very, very nice indeed.
Oh,
and
so
now,
it's a very exciting time. You're now going to announce I'm hearing from producers. This is our we're on the spot now. Now that Magnus is not in the lead, we're not all going to pick Magnus, right? But we have to give our picks for the winner of the tournament, and I picked Levon Aronian.
Hikaru Nakamura.
You picked Nakamura, okay, and Baruch agreed with you.
And we see all the picks on the screen, and of course, I picked Magnus Carlsen. We picked all these picked after day 1, by the way. So this was before and during rehearsal that we had the chance to do this, and so. Jen, you waited until Levon was in first place.
But I think I picked him last time he won the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, it doesn't get a lot of attention when I pick it right. Like forget about it.
I know the feeling.
Oh, please, Yasser, you send up flares when you win. Jeez, you get the planes that fly with the banners, like advertising banners, and Yasser Seirawan won this time. Jen is more quiet about it. I can't say that I don't brag a little bit when I get it right. But Yasser, you definitely make it well known.
Just before they get underway, the disconnection and the forfeit. I went to the ChessBase website and I was reading some comments. And is it too severe? Shouldn't there be something like, you got 5 minutes to reconnect? Is it too severe to get the big fat 0 for a disconnection, and if you only had 30 seconds left? Discuss. What do you guys think?
I think the problem is, I was thinking about this myself. I think it's actually a pretty complicated question. Like in poker, you have something kind of similar to that, where you do have like a time bank that protects you a little bit, especially if you haven't used much of it. If you have a disconnect with your internet, so you won't fold your hand until that's empty. The problem with carrying that over to chess is that, I mean, not that any of these players would ever do this, but even inadvertently, what if they happen to disconnect in a position that's really, really rich and is a position where they actually need 3 minutes to kind of solve the right move? Even if it was just coincidental, and obviously these players could play really well blindfold, that would be a very unfortunate situation if they could, use that to their advantage. So I think that's why it's trickier in chess than in poker.
I think you said this potential abuse is what you're worried about.
Yeah, or even inadvertent abuse.
Even unintentional.
Yeah.
That's right. Okay. Give these guys a few more minutes and they'll work it all out, all the critical variations. So it is a challenge. It's really unfortunate. It's sad. Nobody wants to see it happen. It's never good when it happens. Let's put it that way. There's no good way for that to be resolved. And it's what it is. We're living with it right now. So
but you're
on to
right,
the
yes.
games.
That doesn't mean it can't be improved. I mean, we could still talk about that for a long time, and maybe in one of the breaks we'll continue. But the games are underway, and Levon is playing the Grunfeld.
Well, surprise, surprise, right? And Magnus, who's actually been really shaking the world on the white side of the Grunfeld. I mean, he's defeated such players as Grishuk and Nepo really convincingly. MVL also very convincingly on the white side. A little bit surprised by the Queen B3 choice. We've actually been seeing some captures on D5 and H2, H4. And in fact, Levon's been leading the charge. But there they are in one of the sharpest lines of the Grunfeld. This move A7, A6.
Love it.
There's knight A7, knight D7. There's just so many ways of treating the position. The move A7, A6.
Is one of many. One of many like solid choices here he has. And I can't remember what it was, but I feel like I saw somebody tweet recently that it's interesting that this line used to be, considered one of the most dangerous, but in recent years, it's not as popular because people had discovered that almost every sub variation for black was pretty decent.
There you go. This move E5, okay, that's a real challenge. Now, in the old days, they didn't like this move E5 so much, preferring moves like Bishop E3 and other choices on this. The problem with E5 is that there's this queen sacrifice line, Bishop E6, and I know that this was back in the day very, very, very topical. Eventually, they kind of said, nah, the three pieces for queen and pawn just weren't giving white enough of an advantage, so they stopped playing E5.
So they thought white was only a little bit better there, because
they thought it was even.
Yeah, at first glance, I would think that white would have a really nice game there, just because we've been taught that the three pieces, if they're decently well anchored, are usually just really, really dangerous against the queen. But somehow, especially since after we castle, we're going to have an uber safe king, right?
Right.
So, what was it that gave black that?
I think it was C5. If memory serves, you take queen comes out, you castle. Like you say, your king is really safe, but okay, there's a chopping block, and the three minor pieces don't really, well, I mean, you can always get into tempo, of course, for development. This was where it went, but let's see. No,
he didn't.
B5, B5 on the board.
Yeah, he played B5 instead. And now if Bishop E6 now, how does it change things if black plays Bishop E6 in this position?
Exactly. Well, probably a great deal of similarity. In fact, the key difference that I can see is that obviously the bishop is not on B3, it's undeveloped, and though there's some pressure down the A file, bishop takes B5 on tap. So bishop E6, I think, is a real valid move. Again, Levon has shied away from that line. He's played knight G4.
Knight G4.
By the way, guys, I know this one is rich, but we got to see the opening fireworks from what looked like a fairly tepid position in the other key matchup between Pintala Harikrishna, who was tied for first, and Jan Nepomniachtchi, who is right behind him. You look at this formation, it's important to see, as you look at this position, go back to look at the opening, move 4, queen takes d4 in the open Sicilian, not known to produce too many fireworks. And look at the next couple of moves, knight f6,
whoa,
bishop to e, exactly, you said whoa, bishop e2, you go, what's that about? Knight c6, prompting the queen to drop back, g6 castles, bishop g7, and then h3, another slow move by white, and bam, with black, d5 gets thrown into the mix. The guy hasn't developed any pieces on the queen side, no knight out, no bishop out. So d5 said, Nepo said, let me go for it. Why not make this break in the center? And after a capture, knight takes d5, queen b3, the rook d1 threat is on top. So he played his knight back to b6, rook to d1 anyway, hitting the queen. Then after queen c7, knight to c3 with the threat of knight to b5. Black dare not castle because knight b5 is coming with tempo and it may embarrass his queen. So instead he played bishop e6. Look at these sharp moves. Remember how quiet the game started? It's like attack, attack, go, go, go. Your queen or mine. And hey, you attack my queen, knight b5, let me attack yours. Queen back to b8. And now the expected move might have been c4 there, but there was a knight a5 shot that he had to worry about. So he played queen to a3 and castles gets played. And now we're in this position. Wow, so much happened, guys. So many threats, especially to the queen, to the queens on top of it in the early going of this game.
Yeah, it seems like there was a lot of gnashing of teeth, a great big clash. But at the end of it all, what are we looking at? We're looking at still a little bit tame position, knight d4, okay, tickling the bishop, but more importantly, saying queen takes e7. If you trade, at the end of that trade, there's a double threat, if you will, the threat to take on e6 as well as e7. So this move, knight d4, kind of puts a little, oh, okay, e2 is hanging. E2 is hanging. So maybe it's a little bit awkward to try to grab that pawn on e7 if rook e8 skewers the bishop. Whoops. So maybe it's not as dangerous for Nepo as at first I thought. Knight d4, bishop d5, and you can't really capture the e7 pawn. Knight d4 on the board, sorry. Strange opening though, right, Maurice? Queen d4, bishop e2, queen e3, and h3 as well.
It's very fascinating that you could play this quietly. I would have just thought nada for white in that position, and maybe he still has nothing here. I think I heard that knight c3. We're hearing from our producer that knight c3 was the novelty in this position, which seems like the most natural move on the board. I'm even surprised this position hurt. Why wouldn't you play knight c3?
I mean, knight c3 novelty, I'm with you 100%. Right. If that's not the most natural move in the position, I don't know what else is more natural than developing and waiting to produce a threat. But okay, we'll keep an eye on that. Should we just take a quick gander around the horn? We've got Jeffrey.
I wanted to jump to that game with Hikaru and Alireza because the current position they have, you see the double pawns on the D line, and then you look over and you say, what's up with Black's pawn structure? I mean, we might be looking at like the weirdest opening pawn structure you could guess at, the double D pawns. But in the meantime, Black's pawn on E7 is fully backward on an open file, and the pawn on G7 is also backward, but not on an open file at the moment. Whose pawn structure is worse? I mean,
well, let's see how they got here. Again, it was a Caro Khan. I guess Hikaru's tipped his hand that he likes to play this H4 line that he did play against Magnus in round one. That was a big setback, of course, for Hikaru's chances. And they quickly continued with the line. I think in the previous game, it was E6, Bishop G5, Queen A5, that game between Magnus and Hikaru. In this game, immediately Queen A5, A6, okay, E6. And this is how we got the double D pawns. And the knight set up this beautiful square, F5. Castles is apparently, this has been played before, but the castles move is the novelty. And again, if you ask me, that looks like a really natural move as well. You want to bring your rook to the E file, get your king out of dodge. Well, a lot of ugly squares, ugly weaknesses, but at the moment, again, I'm a big French fan. So the knight on F5 really gets, I like that. So for example, Maurice, if I were to play the move G6 here, would you want to jump to E5 or G5 or just chill?
What I want to do is play 95. You're asking me what I want to do.
Yeah.
My problem is the D pawn hangs after you move the piece.
Exactly.
And so I have to justify why I move the knight just to get this generalized attack on it. So I'd have to be a bit more restrained and probably just wait to see where things are going. Right? Leave the knight on the square. Then the next real issue is the knight on B1. I don't really want to be on C3, not long term. You bringing the piece out. It's got to be somewhere else. And so you're making this point is you should going to different squares on the king side. What would be the ideal square? C3, E2, F4, H3 to G5. That's a lot of a big journey for a knight to spend all that time just to get to those squares. Now, critical to note is that certainly the plan for black is to get the bishop to G7 and make you defend your pawn on D4. So we have to anticipate this attack as it's going to happen in the game as well. He's going to play knight D7 and bishop G7. So that's going to be some good coverage. So we need to be ready for that more than anything, in my opinion. We do see two moves: rook E1, rook G8, rook E1 have been played. The move rook G8 is curious to be sure.
Sorry.
Rook where?
Castles, rook G8. Is that what we would call a mysterious rook move?
Yeah, definitely.
What?
That one certainly qualifies because no G5 is going to happen anytime soon with three things guarding that's pawn. Maybe he realized his pawn was backward and he decided to support it. I mean, this is just not. There's just nothing to do with that. And now he's dropped his king back to E8 even.
Wow.
After just after rook to E1, huh?
Yeah.
I was just
rook
gonna
E1,
say
rook G8,
that,
king E8. Strange.
Wow. Well, these last two moves have really thrown me for a loop because I was just gonna say that like aesthetically, I love the position for white, even though it was challenging. It just seemed like a lot easier to play for white. And while because your correct moves are like what, rook E1 and knight C3 and knight E2. It's kind of like the first things you would think of, but clearly for such a strong player to think that rook G8 and king E8 are the best moves, either this position is bad for black or it's hard to play. Like one of those things is definitely true. Maybe both.
Maybe both.
I want to put the knight on F4. The white knight now really looks like it belongs on F4 because from F4 there's an E6 point as well. That's going to be just absolutely fantastic. I might even sacrifice my D pawn just to make that happen. Maybe I'm being a bit premature here. Knight F4, bishop takes D4, does allow knight E6, and the bishop drops back to B6. But this is where I would think the initiative would start kicking in potentially. Do I get an A4 move, for example, just to harass you and bring all the other pieces into the game very quickly as well? It just looks like it's probably worth a pawn here to make you suffer in this kind of position. A bishop to G5. Remember, black can't castle. So where's the king going to go? I mean, it just looks so dynamic for him.
I'm really, for me, I'm still puzzling over the move Rook G8. Let's just check in on Wesley So and Lanier, and that is a very theoretical variation of the open Spanish that the two players are playing. They're still in a theory. A quick check in on Jeffrey and Grisha. Well, this is strange. It looks like a closed Sicilian, except this bishop on E2 isn't on G2, which is common in the closed Sicilian. What just happened here?
It was a bishop B5 check Sicilian with knight D7. Yeah.
I see.
I know you're wondering, like, why is the bishop on E2 and a bishop B5 check?
Right. Precisely so. And we've caught up with the players. So I'm supposing that queen takes B2 would really be egregiously foul. You could end up getting.
Oh no, your knight.
Oh, sorry.
The knight. Your pawn's on D3.
I'm so used to open. Sorry.
Maybe. Okay, so knight, rook B1, queen C3, rook B7. This is not like winning, right? I mean, black has an extra pawn.
This is great for black. I mean, the bishop on E2 isn't.
Unless I can ensnare your queen somehow, but it looks like you might be escaping to E5, right?
Sorry.
Even if I play a move like knight B after rook B7, rook B8, I might have like a knight B1 type move.
I'm sorry. So rook takes B7. You have a knight B1 type of move.
An F4. I'm just trying to you can just take on E1 exactly. Yeah.
Okay, that looks like a challenge for Sasha, and he's looking at that B pawn.
He's taking it.
He's
taking it. Pawn captured, and rook B1, queen takes on C3 have been played. Well, this one is interesting, but take a look at our marquee game. You're gonna like this position.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Look at what Levon has allowed.
I don't like it. I don't like it. I just picked Levon to win the event.
I mean, whoa! He played back a couple of moves before. As you go there, bishop E6, letting D5 just come with tempo, just straight in your face. D5, and he played knight to D7.
So this is the idea. Pawn takes E6. You have knight C5.
Yes.
Or king, queen, and bishop. Yeah.
Indeed, but Magnus has now dropped the bishop all the way back to B1. Bishop to B1, getting the bishop out the way.
Out of harm's way.
That's not fair. I sacrificed my bishop to E6. You're supposed to take it.
Exactly.
Too bad chess is not checkers. But this one here is looking very scary with those two pawns in the position. But can black drum up some play? I don't really see how.
Well, we better move our bishop. So bishop F5.
Okay, so the problem is if we tickle the queen returns the favor, and black's feelings are getting hurt. 2 pieces on pre. But the problem with bishop F5 is we can take, and if you take on B1, we take on G7, and oops, that's not good. So we have to, in fact, recapture on H6. But then our king side, pardon me, I beg your pardon, the king side pawn shelter, well, that looks like a
what pawn shelter?
It's not the best shield.
When you decide to play the Grunfeld, this is usually not the position you're after. Your opponent's got pawns on D5 and E5.
Yeah.
And the way they did it, by the way, you know, we learned from the old days. We're going back to the late 1800s, mid to late 1800s. The whole reason, and you'll show this in a beginner's class, you're trying to control the center of the board, right? And the reason why you want to is because if you don't put some pawns in the center, the other guy will start pushing pawns in the center of the board. And guy or gal, pawn to E5, pawn to D5. We've seen Steinitz win these kind of games. Morphy win these kinds of games. They take a rook off the board and win these kinds of games in the classical days. Here you see the pawn went to E5 and chased the knight. Then H3, and the knight ended up on H6. Now a pawn went to D5 to chase a bishop. You're thinking, how is he allowing this stuff? Steinitz would just be rolling over in his grave. How can you play chess like this and get away with it? And I'm not sure you can get away with it. As you look at the board now, Levon seeing bishop b1 land on the board, 2 pawns standing abreast on the 5th rank. The bishop, he must be wondering about knight c5 because he doesn't want to play bishop f5 precisely because of the line you just showed, Yaz. But knight c5 is clearly not possible. He's going to drop material. So what else can he be thinking about? Is there another move that's an alternative here? I don't see anything else to do.
Myself either. I mean, I'm looking at some desperados, but they look terrible.
Desperate.
So, yeah, but really desperate. Jan Hein Donner, very cynically, he would look at a position like this and he would say, modern chess, like what has black done, I mean, because the classical guys, yeah, you want to give me the center? Thank you, I'll take the center. Oh, you want me to occupy the center and attack your pieces with a gain of tempo? I'll do that too. So yeah, I mean, Magnus is just very forceful. And guess what? There was, in fact, no choice for Levon. He did play into this line that had you cringing, Jen. You were about to say, this is not why you play the Grunfeld, to get an exposed king. And, you're supposed to be countering white center, right? With moves like c5 and your bishop on g7, and you don't have any.
I'm sure Levon missed something with maybe knight c5, queen a3, like maybe he was analyzing knight c5, queen b1, or there had to be something, because I don't think that was a position he was after. I think that
it might have been just that the bishop b1 retreat, just because that's not a retreat that you expect, right? You kind of think, okay, the guy's going to do something to stop me from playing knight c5. Maybe he'll move his queen, maybe but bishop b1 is very, very strong, a little bit surprising. And then when you look at it just like for another 30 seconds or so and it hits you, oh my goodness, this is a really, really good position for white.
This is just terrible. I know, Jen, you tell your students to play the Grunfeld, and now they're like, what? I'm not playing that opening.
I mean,
well, Rex Sinkfield plays the Grunfeld. He likes that opening. I mean, so many of the players that we invite on the Grand Chess Tour are specialties in this opening. Spidler, Maxime Bachier-Lagrave. They all get in, and all of them get in there and occasionally play the Grunfeld, but Jeffrey Xiong. But today is not the Grunfeld's finest day, I'll tell you.
Well, is Levon ever a Grunfeld player? Do we know if Levon is a Grunfeld player?
Yeah, he has it definitely in his repertoire, and he likes playing both sides. I mean, I'm sure he's not signed up for this position. I mean, it's gone really, really south. Quick check on our other co-leader. Wow. Okay. Sparks are flying over here, guys, between Hari and Jan. We left it, whoa. We just saw the move knight d4, bishop d5, which was kind of expected. Oh, bishop e3, e6, looks right. Bishop takes f3, not even waiting for c4. How about that? Bishop takes.
Giving up the two bishops just like that.
Wow, okay. Well, this is a monster bishop. I mean, look at that. That's really, really nice.
And by the way, I felt that way about the position when the queen went to b8, that was the only eyesore for black that needed to be solved at some point. When you saw it happen, the moment it happened, you said, okay, his only discoordination issue is this queen. If he could castle, if the queen had a straightforward square, then all his pieces just fly into the game, right? You just castle, you bring your rooks to the open files, and you're feeling like it's a decent position. This was a problem to solve. But the way the game transpired, the way Harry started making specific moves, let's hit the bishop on d5, let's make it move. And then he puts these couple of moves as well. And now he gets to play a move like bishop d6, queen still in the corner. And then he anchors that piece, as you called it, as a monster piece. That bishop just looks really strong. Is it just biting on granite at the moment? we'll see as this
But-
move, knight d3, forked pieces and force him to concede a bishop.
Yeah, I was about to say this knight d3. That or wait a minute, that's uninvited. It was rook d1, rook d1 e1 best, because after this, I'm jury's out. There's play suddenly, the potential for play in a black's position. Knight, oh, excuse me, missed the fact that this little charmer is on pre. Nepo looking pretty okay suddenly. That pawn on d3 is very disconcerting. Rook d4 gains a tempo so that you could play rook and double. Oops, excuse me, that was not the intention. Just trying to clear the board. But I'm thinking rook d4 here, and time Jan has an extra 6 minutes on the clock.
Wait, Jan has a time advantages?
Yeah, as common.
I can't remember the last time that happened. Oftentimes
Yeah.
he has like double or triple his opponent because he just plays so quickly in the opening, right?
Exactly. So again, a quick check on Magnus.
Wait, what?
Did you really see e7, e6? What?
Oh,
Castles, e6? Can't I just...
when you had a golf.
Are my
What?
eyes deceiving me here,
You
guys?
mean just take on e6? And then,
Yes.
and then
You got to play knight c5. You can't even capture, right?
Right, but
And
then I have-
go,
in between move, right?
that's the old swishy. And now where does my queen go? c2, d5. This is simply excellent for white. What have I?
You're at a loss for words, which is
Yeah.
rare for Yasser Seirawan.
I'm
Rare for
like-
any of us, but
I'm like,
what's
wait,
going
wait.
on?
You're
Wait-
trying to
wait
think
a
of
minute.
something nice to say about Levon's position.
I don't see it. I don't know what it is that I'm supposed to say that's so nice. It's really not, it's not pretty. Queen a3, queen d5, queen c2 all look like white's got just snacking a very, very happy pawn. Speaking of snacking very happy pawns, when we left it, Sasha had snacked a pawn on b2, but it does look like Jeffrey got it back. Just going back to the position we left it. Jeffrey had some ideas of snagging the queen. And he did get his pawn back. And, well, okay, it looks like a pretty balanced position after all of the back and forth. Hikaru versus Ali Riza. What is
Yeah,
going on here,
Naka.
guys? When we
Naka's
left-
game we can check in on again. That was looking
Yeah.
very unpleasant for Firouzja after rook g8 and king e8. But gosh, more moves have passed and it's not looking much prettier.
Well, this is a really big moment right here after this knight g3, because the very best piece that black had in the position was this knight on e5. And if you have to play a move like bishop f8, it's all gone wrong, because you just go back a few moves and you go here so that you can go here. No, this is not what black wanted. And
It's what happened.
yeah, and now it looks really bad.
The superior minor piece, the bad pawn structure, the increasingly bad pawn structure, the backward pawn on the E line. And all white has to say, as far as giving you any hope, is that white has double pawns. Good luck exploiting that. Especially the fact that you have a dark squared bishop and the D pawn on D3 is on a light square. So you're not going to sell that one. Meantime, you've got buttons everywhere that are weak. H5, F5, E7. I mean, this is just lost.
Exactly. The only question is, do I start with rook f5 or rook a1 to e1 first? But definitely, Hikaru, my pick in the driver's seat on this one. Just wanted to remind you guys What's what?
We'll never hear from you again.
Never to be heard from again. That's right. Okay.
All you need is a little whisper. There you go.
Little push.
You like your pick. I like my pick a lot this round.
Okay, Magnus is doing a nice job. This move D4 sets up just a really, I think everybody who's ever played chess has fallen for a trap like this.
In which game?
In the game between Wesley So and Lanier Dominguez. And you look at this position, you go, oh, I get it. My opponent played C5. I thought I was stopping that because I'm hitting C5 with the knight and the pawn. I get it. If I take with the pawn, then he's going to take my pawn on E5. Boom. I'm not a big fan of that. I'll tell you what. I'll take the pawn on C5 with my knight. Now if he takes with the bishop, I'm not going to take with the pawn and allow queen takes. I'll take with the queen and I'll be very, very happy. We suddenly get shocked by a nasty rook takes d4 action. And we go, oh, there's a trap. So so c5 sets up a very nice trap. And I have to confess, on numerous occasions, I've fallen into that type of oversight where, like in my glee at winning a pawn, I forgot about the diagonal.
Finish the variation, Yaz. There's some in the audience who may not see it as clearly, or at least want to see it on the board as you're pointing out. Nice diagonal action there. And that rook is going to get hammered to an inch of its life after rook lands on d8 and a queen takes on e5 as well. So
you mean you're not going to just take my rook right away and let me try to survive an endgame? You're gonna go for the torture technique.
Yeah, and maybe just simply
love it. Yeah, don't take that piece until you have to, right?
Exactly. So knight takes c5 would be a blunder galore. And speaking of the world champion Magnus Carlsen, we did see the intermezzo takes on f7 check, rook takes f7, queen a3, decent move, knight e6, and everybody's favorite rook ad1, developing with a gain of tempo.
And now trying to go into an endgame. And that's the second time where Magnus says, I'm not playing an endgame. I love your king position. It's just so beautiful. And I want to torture you with this bad king. Now, may I ask, what do you think is worse? This king position Levon has in front of him, or the king position he had against Grischuk?
Oh,
that he managed
Grischuk, for sure. Oh.
And that he managed to survive and even win the game.
Yeah,
that game, we didn't think he was going to make any comeback whatsoever. If he makes a second comeback, he is indeed a cat, and he's used up 3 lives in this game. Just be astonishing, and also down on the clock, 16 minutes to 5:12.
Mm-hmm.
I get it, but no, that's just too much to ask.
This looks like a real disaster. I love the move rook on f1 to e1, what we used to call Vladimir Kramnik's move. We used to joke about Vladimir Kramnik that when he didn't know what to do, in almost any type of position, by the way, he would play the move rook on f1 to e1, just on the theory that the rooks belong in the center of the board. And here we can see that rook e1 is in prep for knight f6 check, when the rook will suddenly be magnificent on the open e-file. So pawn in compensation for Magnus. He's the one enjoying what's going on in this game a lot. c5. Ooh, my spidey
dealing with the
diagonal,
dealing with the diagonal.
Going after the a pawn. Who would have thought?
Yeah. No pawn, no matter how small, it should not be plucked. Queen a3 grabs my attention. I wouldn't be surprised if there's even something more forcing. After all, this rook on d1 really wants to plant itself on d6, but queen a3 cannot be a bad move for Magnus. He's looking really good. Let's go back to Nepo and Harikrishna. What do we think about this one, guys? We left it not so far from here.
Yeah, well, certainly
You look at
looks
these.
imposing for Jan, as he hasn't given up any material to have this beautifully advanced D pawn that is holding all of White's pieces kind of bottled in. And if you fast forward a couple of moves, Rook D2 was played, and now Bishop G7 with the idea that, okay, if you try to round up that pawn, sometimes there's going to be tactics with Bishop H6, right? So
Exactly.
you gotta watch it, right? Rook D1, Bishop H6 right away. Definitely Rook E3, Bishop H6 skewers the rooks. So Queen B3 was Harry's choice.
You know, this thing about pass pawns, it's really important to note that they're great, right? Obviously, you tie pieces, you tie enemy pieces down, they will advance further and further down the board. But the biggest challenge with them is getting them all the way to the end line. And if they're firmly blockaded, then you need to open up a second front, generally speaking, in order to show the helplessness of the opponent's pieces. So here, let's say Bishop A6 has been played after Queen B3, Bishop A6 is on the board. You play Rook back to D1 is what we would expect. And then the move D2 and Rook to E2, I'm just going to play for the moment. Here, getting rid of that Rook on Rook E5 is also playable. Maybe let's play Rook E5. That's a good idea as well. But the point I'm trying to make is the Rook on D1 is annoying to get rid of. Like, how do you get it away? Your only way to eject this piece is to get a Rook on C1 or E1. Right? That's like the only way to do it. You cannot remove this piece. You just can't. Your bishop is the wrong color. It is supporting the pawn on D2, but it can't help shepherd the pawn to the very next square. This means that black needs something else beyond this pawn, because there's just, you can work a long time to figure out how to get this pawn moving to get the rook off the square. Well, really, it's to get the rook off the square to get the pawn moving. So where else will black go in order to make it happen? Now, there is an idea of Rook D3 takes on F3. Now, that is creating a new possibility for black so that you could get some dynamism around the king and potentially harass the rook on D1.
Oh, I like that idea. But I also had a boring idea of just trying to trade queens, because I feel like, you know, it's a really nice combination, rook and bishop versus rook and knight, where as Yas pointed out yesterday, that combination is particularly fruitful in the endgame. And so if queen D3, and no matter what happens, I feel like I'm going to start harassing your queen side pawns, which could be overextended with my rooks and bishop.
Now, what you're saying about that is that you are looking for the second front as well, is to capture this pawn, right?
Yep.
Now, he played queen F6 in the game. The trick to be concerned about, we should point out, is if you're not careful in this endgame, white can play for B5, C6. White won't just sit down and let you attack. There is a B5, C6 idea as well. And also he has king F1 and king to E2, making it even harder to get past those light squares. So I mean, it's a D pawn on D2. What more can you ask for? It's fantastic, but you still have to break the resistance. And now we see rook D3 on the board after queen C4. You don't have to ask any questions about why black plans to do on the next move. Black is thinking, I want to sack on F3. But if you guard F3, I'm thinking something like queen G4, for example. Oh no, rook F3 is threatening the rook on E5 as well. So you have to be mindful of that. This move you're playing queen E4, yes. Rook F3 now is answered by pawn takes at the worst case. So, and queen E4 is indeed on the board.
Queen E4 has been played, okay.
So this is the point. How do you break? And he sacked. Oh, you sacked. Sorry, you got me excited.
Well, isn't it time to do what you wanted to do a long time ago, Maurice? You said this rook on D1 is such a powerful blockading rook. The only way to get rid of it is to put a rook either on C1 or E1. So rook C3, and he's played rook C3, by the way.
Yes.
Good move.
And somebody was also mentioning that b5, c6 on white's agenda. So rook c3, getting the rook behind a passed pawn really puts a kibosh on that. This looks really good for black.
Hold on.
I mean,
if
how
I
do
put
we
a
deal
king,
with?
I'm just thinking now, king f1, king e2. Is that just too ridiculous? Oh, wait, there's a queen a6 problem.
Check.
There's a queen a6, maybe even before you played rook to c3. The moment the king appeared on the board, the king appeared at f1, that could have happened. But maybe now it's even better, actually, because a2 is dropping. So if I can't use the king, I'm going to have to use the queen.
So one thing, I'm not 100% sure this is rook on e5 is super satisfactory. If I trade it off and go full defensive mode, if I seize the defensive completely, rook c1, I'm not, I don't think I can capture that pawn. I'm pretty sure I can't. In fact, I get pinned badly with this move. This looks really bad for Harikrishna. I mean, rook c3 with the idea rook c1.
It's interesting, isn't it? A few moves ago, you couldn't see how the rook gets to c3, and then the queen
Suddenly
shifts,
it's there.
and we get the idea. And
it's there.
I mean, it's all about ejecting that rook. Can he get any security? His rook on e5 can't get back to the back row to just simply defend the piece, which would make it fine for him. And a queen back to e2.
Mm-hmm.
What happens on a queen back to e2?
So let's just say king f1, rook c1, queen e2, right? Just so that we can, nothing. We're just simply getting ourselves tied up, Maurice. I mean, the queen is now anchored to the rook.
No, the problem here is we lose the a pawn. You just trade and take on a2. I mean, check. Trade, check, and take. The king on f1 allows for this straightforward tactic, and that's not acceptable here.
Okay.
So king f1 is not
king
going to
f1
work.
was okay. Let me waste a tempo another way then.
A good waste, yeah. It's not
a good waste
like
of a
h4.
tempo.
What should white be doing here? The knight on f3 needs to help as well. I don't see how to deal with the rook c1 threat.
Exactly.
We knew this was the way. We knew we had to get rid of this rook, and somehow white's pieces left, left the party, and now he's going to be able to do it very easily.
We are seeing the move rook e8, and I must say that was actually my first intent, because you were seeing how the rook on e5 was somehow in the way, whereas that rook on d8 was being very good at supporting this pawn on d2. Now, the real problem for Harikrishna is that his king's not on f1, so the desirable queen e5 and king on to e2 were just a tempo behind him.
One tempo would have gotten him in to be able to play this move.
And the result,
no.
guys,
No,
Magnus Carlsen has defeated Levon Aronian, and now Levon, who came into the day with such a beautiful score, it's dropped down. But guess what? Pintala Harikrishna could find himself in the same situation.
Also drop. We talked about this pairing from the very top of the show, guys, and we knew it was going to be super hard for our leaders to deal with the lineup that was in front of them. And right away out the gate, Levon had to deal with Magnus. Why are they? I see the two of them still sitting there. That seems a bit unusual.
That is a little strange. Maybe they're looking at the other games.
Okay, after we left it, queen a3 was played, by the way. Magnus greedily eyeing the a6 pawn, rook a7 by Levon, and this move queen a, what a posting that would be on the b6 square, just hitting a lot of very nice targets in black's position. a4, trying to break up the team on the queen side, and we saw b4. Well, that is a pawn, and Magnus said not interested. And I was mentioning that this rook, looks really good. Queen, okay, that's a second pawn. Oh boy.
Just a technical task and a pin on the knight. He just took it and moved and traded.
That was too easy. That was too easy.
Really?
Levon fell out of bed this morning. That game really was not will not go down as a great game by Levon. And unfortunately for Indian fans, Harikrishna is really just a piece down, and after check, followed by check, I think it's a good time to give it a rest.
A lot of fans for this man. I mean, I'm impressed by Harry in interviews. Is you could ask him how the weather is, and he'd come up with a fascinating answer. But unfortunately, not his best game today either. Although I think Nepo seemed to play really well there at the end with the rook d3, rook c3, and bishop g7. Nice little quiet move of just rerouting the bishop to the h6 square to take over d2.
Not supposed to be that easy, Jen. Not supposed to be that easy, though. We noted that was the main plan in the position, and Harry just let it happen. Just straightforward, get a rook to the back rank, and that was it. By the way, if I may, I know we'll chat on this a second, but Wesley did a really interesting move in the game against Lanier. If you could jump to that on move 28, everything was all good for black after this c5 move we were talking about. And we see this trade, rook f5 guarding his pawn. And so rook f5 in this position. So this is, first of all, a pawn sack, right? And now g6. And look at this next move. Said, you want my rook?
I'm offering it to you. Don't take it, though. Don't take the rook. Check, and oops, you're going to be mated if you move your king, because that's just too easy. And if you move it to g7, though, what is the killer shot after?
Same problem, though. Queen f5. What do you do?
I was going to try.
Oh, you have a queen g3 check as well. But I looked at queen g5 is mating, isn't it? Nice little mating setup.
Nice pattern. So rook f1 with ideas of, I don't know, knight f6 and rook h5, king g7 on the board. And what's the time?
And Wesley has been sitting here for quite some time, by the way, looking at this position. He hasn't moved in a while. His rook is potentially hanging. Knight g5, he might be thinking about it with the rook. So is knight g5 possible? Let's take a look at it. And he's played it. It looks like he has played. It looks like he has played the move. It's on the board, and instantly Lanier backed up.
Well, wait a minute. You just played king g7, knight g5, king g8. Wow. What?
And it looks like you still can't take the rook. Could we add that as a reality as well? No, you are threatening to take and play f6, if we may call that a threat, given that the
if we had taken it, the move before, we would have taken, and we've got an issue, right? Something like this, and we've got check, and if you go to the f file, we've got a rook. No, this looks
the rook you got the rook on h8 hanging as well.
Yeah, so that looks crushing. So that was why Lanier dropped back with the rook, but now
the king came up and then he went back. Two free moves. But can you take on f7, or do you have a queen h3?
Queen h3 would force h5, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Queen
play pawn take f5 is made. f6 looks terrible after takes on f6. Queen h3 was played, and it looks like that's going to force h5.
It certainly.
But don't you smell something here? Like
yeah.
Wesley is deep in thoughts. Look at his head is. There's a bomb about to land. There's a bomb that has to be landing shortly on this board. Like how does white
You're
do
looking
it?
at like every possible legal move here, right? You're looking at like, e6, knight f7, rook f6. But
he played queen g3.
Queen g3 played.
That doesn't feel like a bomb.
Introducing the idea, I guess, of knight takes f7. Is that why we do that? And then after rook f7.
I thought that he was going to go queen d3 to set up rook f7 ideas. Queen g3 didn't occur to me. I was kind of concerned about.
Okay, knight f7 looks like a threat though. So
knight f7 is. Wait a minute. Is it okay? Just show me. Is knight f7? I was going to take on f7.
If I take your rook, you're going to take again? You're going to play the endgame?
Well, you know what my dream was to force your queen to some terrible square like.
The thing is, queen f4 check, but it's not the end of the story because your pawn is going quick,
fast, right? Yeah.
So
Amazing
you have
position.
to find the right square for that king. Like it looks like you actually have to go to g8 or e8. E8 is also
E8, maybe E6
is scary.
Right.
E8 is scary. Yes. So g8.
So G8 and now E6 is not threatening mate, right? You can hide.
No, but it's threatening your rook.
You're threatening E6, Queen F7, Queen F8. I mean, Queen takes D8.
Correct.
But,
F7.
but you could be queening there, and there's a Bishop F8 idea. So let's go through the line. So say you throw in a check.
So I did it for a very specific purpose, Jen. I wanted to give you a back rank mate.
That's not nice.
I'm gonna have to be forced to go Queen C1, which is not my biggest
Queen C1,
ambition.
then D2 comes immediately.
I'd have to play Queen C1.
I think we did it wrong for Wesley, but okay. So the question is, after H5, he has played D3. It took him some time. He had to walk.
And knight F7 is on the board.
And knight F7 immediately on the board. He had to work through a lot of
analysis.
Where did we go wrong, guys?
Variation.
What did we do that was
we
not right?
Rook takes F7.
Okay, and then here we did rook takes F7, right?
There's Queen G6. I got Rook G7.
Yeah, that looks appealing. So rook F7, Queen F7, rook F7, King F7, and we did Queen F4 check here, right?
Oh, did we?
We did do Queen F4.
Yes, Queen F4 check was the move to go after the bishop.
Yeah.
And if you take the bishop, well, why don't you take the bishop then? Okay, because you could do it in this way, but that's what I wanted to do. That was what my hope was to tie your queen down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was, so taking the bishop isn't convincing me.
Well, that's not easy either, but look what's happened in the game. He's decided to play instead bishop to c5 with check, anticipating the long game. The bishop is now no longer on take for later, and now the king is in the corner as well. So he's got his pass pawn. He's hoping you're not winning anything. And if the king can somehow get to safety, then bishop, pawn, and rook is worth a queen. Like that's a given, especially this pawn.
Yeah.
And by the way, Hikaru Nakamura has won against Firouzja.
Oh, that position was so big.
Big start for Naka.
Oh, the final position looks pretty cool too.
So White needs to strike right now, and he's got to do it very, very quickly before the moment I see this pawn on D2. I see only two results.
Reminds us of the Nepo game.
Yeah, an echo, right? That powerful pass D pawn. Okay, we're seeing it twice. Okay, so how about check? Where's the king going? If you go, in this case, to G8, I have Queen F6 with a double hit. Looks very promising for White. E6 also. No, yeah, I think no. Isn't this where we? Gosh,
E6 D2.
No, D2.
Check,
I have the double check, right?
And take. Yeah,
yes,
that's right.
So
show that on the board. Let's show that on the board.
Yeah, we saw this before. I get to take the rook, and you can't mate me because I've got D1 covered. Oops, excuse me. That was I hit the wrong key there. Oops, that's not the right key. Where were we? Okay, so we could go back to
yeah, go back a couple of moves here. This is the king is on F7.
Yeah, well, this is the game position, and we're expecting Queen F3. This is our.
It's been played, and King G8 has been played, and I don't know what to do about E6.
King G8 is on the board.
Really strong.
Great idea. Yeah, that's right. So similar to the lines we were looking at, but when Rook F8 comes, we get to just snap the pawn on D3. That goes to show it's almost like a double attack. It's like an anticipated double attack.
Yeah, this is the main move. I think there's a problem here, though, guys. I mean,
Played.
Okay, and he played E6.
played.
The problem is because there's a couple of attractive moves with the queen as well. But I think that Queen C6 and Queen F6 looked attractive, and
he just played King H7. By the way, we need to rush. Yaz, I'm sorry
to
interrupt, but he's going fast, and he's found a way to win the rook.
Nice.
He played
geometry.
E6. He played a check. His queen came back. King H6, Queen F4 check, and now King G7. And it looks like Queen C7 check is just a rook, and you have to resign. Game over.
Which
nice
is
game.
exactly
Nice little geometry there. Finding the long checks. Moves like that, maneuvers like that can be tough to see, because what could be better than having your queen on F7 right against the king, looking like you're about to mate or queen a pawn? But actually, there is something even better, just winning the rook for free and forcing resignation.
By the way,
Impressive
in hindsight, that bishop C5 check, which we didn't look at immediately,
No.
like that might have been the culprit, because we were still trying to figure out what to do with the bishop on B4.
One away, guys, and it's an all-decisive day so far. 4 out of 4.
Wow.
This game is decisive. It'll be 5 decisive games to start up. Now look at this material imbalance.
Love it.
3 pieces versus a rook and a bishop. Oh, 3 pieces and a pawn, yes. I don't want to offend your sensibilities.
Thank you.
This looks really good for black.
It sure does. 2 minor pieces, especially in any kinds of endings where the pawns, there's not pawns on both flanks. The 2 minor pieces really are awesome. They do really dominate a rook, and it looks like Jeffrey has a material imbalance that's just terrible for him.
Well, and look at Harikrishna.
Yeah, I mean, you want to play it solid, right? Is this what you tell your students, Jen and Maurice? Play it very carefully. Don't rush. Put your knight on F8.
No, the key is to figure out where the knights belong, because it's great to have knights, but if they're not doing anything, then you have a problem. To me, I'm looking for anchor squares for the knight. One anchor square is D4. Right? If you put a knight on D4 and protect it with a pawn on E5, there is nothing you can ever do about this piece. The other square looks, the other square that looks good is the square one knight is sitting on right now, is E5, but you don't get both a pawn on E5 and a knight on E5. So the knight has actually dropped back to G6. And to me, he should be aiming to put the knight somehow on the D4 square, and that should just split white's position in half. And then the other knight should be aiming for that pawn on G3 somehow and make white advance it and keep advancing until it just gets too weak and will be assailable. He's dancing around with his knights at the moment. He has sufficient time on the clock, you would think. But just about where should the knights go? Bishop is on an anchor square. Knights need an anchor square somehow. And this is how they're going to coordinate. At the moment, you're up material, but so what if your pieces aren't attacking anything?
Well, he's about to play knight h5 and try to provoke this pawn.
The first pawn
push. The pawn a little bit forwards. So then we have this very nice f4 square. And Jeffrey basically
played. There's a knight check. Knight e5.
Oh, no.
That's just the worst way to defend.
5 decisive games. Wow.
Whoa. I think this position is losing, but I mean, black had to work for it. King f3 was not recommended.
Isn't it interesting? Isn't it interesting? It happens to us as players that you're thinking about a position, you realize there's one tiny weakness, but it's real. That G pawn. Knight h5 is coming. You're going to have to anticipate dealing with that. So be ready to play the move G4. So you start getting lost in thoughts, abstract thoughts about this specific weakness. Something's going to come to f4 with check after you play G4. So why don't I anticipate deeply by putting my king on the square f3 anyway, right? In advance. Right. So you're thinking all those deep thoughts and you forget on the very first move, oh, right, there's a fork.
Yeah. We saw it happen to the best of them, even Magnus Carlsen with that move order mishap in the 960.
Jennifer, just to review, you said we had all decisive games to start.
Bloody start to the day,
4.
guys.
Wow.
We didn't even have an all-decisive round in 9LX. So.
Wow, that is remarkable. I'm just reviewing a little bit this Hikaru game. Hikaru ended up with a lot of pass pawns and 3 connected pass pawns. He said, I'm prepared to sacrifice my rook so that I will get my advanced pawns, and that's exactly what happened. Alireza did win the rook, but
too many pawns. Jeez.
Yeah, just way too fast, and the king is going to come to
H. Don't we have 2 brand new leaders? Was it Wesley and Nepo were right behind the 2?
You're right.
They won the standings.
That's right. They have flipped, as Jan and Wesley were in joint third last round, and now they pop into the lead, while Levon and Pentala are now in joint third, but someone else has joined, world champion Magnus Carlsen, with a nice bounce back game against Levon Aronian. Nakamura now on an even score, feeling a lot better after yesterday's tough start, and Grishik also with a little bit of wind in his sails.
Absolutely, and unfortunately, Alireza, Jeffrey, the junior players, it seems like they're not ready to take on the big lions quite yet, Jen.
5 rounds. 5 rounds, still early.
Still early.
Too. They could recover. So I think they need to do decently in the rapid. They can really show some fine stuff in the blitz. They were born on online blitz, right?
That's true. Yep. And we're just going to, as we take a break, we're going to show you a very nice highlight from the 2018 Rapid and Blitz between Shaq and Nakamura. You may bring back some nice memories.
Be right back.
This game has changed dramatically.
2 shocking moves.
Now it's just about the light square bishop figuring out what to do. King b2, bringing the king into the game as well. Rook to d7.
Rook to d7.
Bishop c3 and bishop f5. Those last 2 moves by white seem less than convincing.
I like it. Maurice, bishop f3.
h5, preparing rook g5 ideas.
h5. I like that move too.
I don't understand.
By the way, we have a big score. MVL has drawn his game.
But what's this about? He just played king back to a1. I don't like what's going on.
I don't get that.
What was king a1?
Now we can't play rook g5 anymore. Yeah.
d7. No, I've got d3.
You got d3.
I can defend the b1 square with the move d3. So
but look at that king. It's just terrible. And how do you make progress here?
Bishop
bishop
f3 to stop the rook from getting to b7.
But then you put the bishop on d5.
Correct. I want to put the bishop on d.
Now we can move our, and I want to be able to play e4,
bishop
d3.
g4.
Bishop g4, giving up one of the 2 bishops.
I wouldn't have guessed that move. I would have wanted to keep my bishops. I was thinking maybe bishop d1 to b3 to keep the 2 bishops.
Doesn't he have to trade immediately? Yeah, I'm surprised he took so long.
And he has played h6,
shutting that down.
But the king on a1 is terrible.
Yes.
Put the king on c2.
That maneuver just did not make any sense. Now he's shut out of the play. Now the rooks have doubled, but he's bringing his rook back. And how does white make progress here? Wait, but white can at least put his bishop...
He doesn't have to bring it. He did bring it. He could have played king a2. He did.
Bishop e5.
Rook b1 was not a threat after king
rook
a2.
e6, bishop... Okay, white now has the game under control, but the question is how to make progress.
Right. It's all about activating
d7,
the
rook
king.
g2. He cannot let the white king get in the game.
No, he'll go back to b6.
He has to control this king.
He will put a rook back on the b file.
b7 is the move.
And king a2, just get it up to the b3 square.
What about d4?
d4.
Oh, wait, he just moved this rook away from the file. Bring the king in. King b6, rook check, move the king over.
He didn't have to be asked twice.
Oh, yeah. He's happy about this. And now the bishop will come back to guard b2, and that's all covered.
Rook b6.
Do we have to play bishop c1?
We got bishop c1. But there was that big question you asked a moment ago. What about d4?
Well, not right now.
No, not
He's
right
also
now.
down on the clock.
By the way,
all right,
yes.
Bishop C1 being played,
Has been played, yes.
and now he's ready to march his pawns forward. Maybe
Yes, he
D4.
is.
D4, yes. That's the
Well, there's rook G6 in the position. Rook G6. But rook A1 can be annoying.
Is it really annoying? What is
Yes.
it doing? Rook A1 and then rook A2 check is the
Correct.
last check, isn't it? The bishop is going to need flexibility. The bishop is going to need room somehow. He
Well,
has
he
played
has
rook
played-
G6
and rook A1
and rook
automatic.
A2 check, and also rook.
By the way, this bishop on C1 is really anemic
And look
now.
at Shock's clock, too.
And he's
He's got
playing
90
D4. He needs
seconds
some room
left.
for that king.
Okay, but there's check,
King
king C3,
C3,
rook B1. Harassing the bishop. Ooh, he's played king D3, rook. Whoa, he's stepped back into a pin.
Slick guarding, though. Slick. Because well, the thing is, Black's king can be introduced, and Black is stymied about what he can do on that side. If he plays rook to A1, king C2, and then everything is frozen, he's well defended, and he's the one with the initiative with his pawns.
D5, E4,
Yeah,
E4,
he's
and let's
doing
go.
So
Push him, baby.
White is okay for the moment in a check, and now the king is marched up, and now he's gone after
King D5.
Now
king
he's
D5, rook C3.
Rook C3 is
Oh, and traps the bishop.
Yeah.
Well, he
rook
can't
C3.
he can't unravel in this position. How
Rook
does he
C3.
untangle?
Rook B3 C3 traps the bishop.
Or
rook
this
B1.
one.
B1 also, yeah.
Nakamura about to win this game. The pawn is not dangerous enough. The C pawn, he plays king D5, but
The
that
bishop
looks like
is hanging.
the bishop is hanging and he has to resign.
And there it is.
Wow, and
Fantastic defense by did Hikaru just seal the deal?
He sealed the deal.
The game, the
That's
tournament
it.
is over.
There's your
He is the
Have a
champ.
Champions.
He's got 22 and a half points with Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, and
Wow.
Shock at 20 and a half. No one can catch this man. We were all right. Nakamura is the St. Louis Rapid Blitz champion.
Hello and welcome back to the St. Louis Rapid Blitz. I'm Jennifer Shahade. I'm here with Yasser Seirawan and Maurice Ashley. And what a round four we had, guys.
We certainly did. 5-zip, but I must say that on our break, I really enjoyed that clip, a real precursor to the type of blitz action we're going to see. But here's our current standings, Jen.
Yeah, well, we mentioned it right before the break. Jan and Wesley have leapfrogged over Levon and Harry after those dramatic round four results.
And what's coming up for their next pairings?
Well, they're going to get more and more tense as the tournament reaches its midpoint right now. Magnus Carlsen playing black against Dominguez, who just lost his game, while Firouzja and So are facing off. Jan playing against a wounded Jeffrey Xiong as well. So these pairings right now seem like the wounded versus the victorious.
Well, except Levon is playing Pintala. They
Exactly.
just had the lead. They just were together in first, and now they crashed and burned from the last game and will have to face off against each other. Will they make a quick draw just to try to right the ship, get the mental batteries recharged? Or will someone say, you know what, I'm sorry, you got to step back. I'm trying to get back to the front again.
Exactly. Well, one question for you. What do you think about the draw percentages, comparatively speaking, of the three types of time controls, Jen? Here we have a graphic.
That's right. Well, the faster the chess, the fewer the draws. And we know that Maurice certainly loves that, but don't we all? We all love those decisive games, blood on the board. Okay, there are plenty of super entertaining draws, but it's nice when they're the exception, not the rule. And these draw rates since 1999, it would be great to get a breakdown more precisely as to recent events. And I think these statistics are what you might intuit, though, right? That the faster you go, the fewer draws you have.
That would have definitely been my common sense kind of thinking, that as you get into the blitz, the decisive percentage goes up.
Well, and why is that?
Because you time travel makes fools of us all, Maurice. And
mistakes crop in. People can't play
you're...
perfect chess with all that time on their clock because they only have a little bit of time on their clock.
And there's not that much time to think.
Oh, look at that.
What? We need the cat cam. Come on, guys.
Oh, that's way too cute.
Cat. Oh my God, that cat is a boss.
It's not just the cat, it's the way, look how lovingly they're sharing that space together. Oh, that's too cute.
Does he know he's on camera?
No.
What?
Just love some Wesley So, that's all.
This is adorable. Don't leave. Keep this shot.
Nice.
I actually don't have a cat, but I do really like kitty cats.
Clearly Wesley does too.
Apparently so.
Lucky cat.
Looked like he was in his PJs there.
Wait, why did nobody pick Wesley? If I'd known that he was playing with a cat as his second guy, that would have been my pick.
Wow. Good you didn't know. Now,
Wesley and Kitty.
in our next round, what is going to be our marquee game? We have Lanier and Magnus, Harikrishna and Wesley, Grishuk and Hikaru, Jan and Jeffrey, and finally, Levon and Harikrishna, who were just our tournament leaders.
That would have been it, right? But not right now. It doesn't feel like
it. I always like watching Jan's games, and I feel like Jeffrey is such an interesting player. That might be like my top pick from the get-go, because Jan is a co-leader and he always plays so quickly. So it's not like we have to sit around for a long time figuring out how he's going to develop. That's my number one fave.
Okay, we'll start with it.
Who hasn't gotten any love from us though? Because Jan did just get some love from the last game. But while we ponder that, look at this incredible Oktoberfest that is coming up.
And I love the way this is working, guys, because everybody gets their moment to shine. All of these events are going to be held separately. The U.S. Junior Girls, the U.S. Junior, the Seniors, the Women's Championship, and of course the overall U.S. Championship. And so we're going to be able to have our sole attention on the games of, legends like Larry Christensen and Joel Benjamin from October 17th to 19th. Really, really fun format and some wonderful chess in store for all fans.
It looks like it's going to be a series of tournaments based on rapid chess, Jen?
Yes, it's rapid chess. So it's 12-player round robins for the women's and the overall. The other events are all 10-player round robins. So it's going to be 3 days of chess, similar to the rapid portion of the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz for the 10-player tournaments, which is the senior, the junior, and the junior girls. And then we will go to a 4 full-day schedule. Did I say a four and full? I feel like I keep flipping those words, but a full 4-day schedule for the women's and the U.S. Championship. And those events are going to crown national champions. They're crowning national champions. And the prize fund has remained almost exactly the same, which again is incredibly generous, as many of the players who haven't gotten these massive invitations over the summer, because most of those were these elite round robins, are going to be invited to these tournaments. That is going to be their first big money event of the summer, or I guess fall now. And I'm sure that everybody's just so appreciative that these events are online with those same prize funds.
And those juniors who sometimes would have to skip championships because of school,
right?
They can say, you know what? I think I'll play in this one because I'm doing work online anyway.
Right.
I could take a break. I'm sure the professors won't say, no, you got to show up for my Zoom class.
Well, you could, yeah. I mean, maybe just put the zoom on, turn the camera on. Just kidding. But yeah, the virtual learning does allow for a lot more flexibility because a lot of times those classes are recorded. And I actually had some of my students from my girls' club in the U.S. Chess Women's Program tell me that they were watching us on one monitor and then doing their virtual learning on another.
Cool.
So
multitasking.
Yes, multitasking indeed. Well, double virtual learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the younger generation can pull that off easily. They can even turn some music on while doing both of those things as well, and have the phone out texting.
Yeah, it is impressive.
It's extraordinary. Can't believe it when I watch my kids do it. It's like
they can text without looking at the phone, basically.
They got the TV on and doing work. Like I was like, you can't possibly be concentrating. Like, duh, we are. As long as they brought home the A's, it didn't matter. So
they got the A's. Nice. The games are about to begin momentarily. Any predictions? Like, what opening do you think Dominguez Carlsen is going to be? I think it's going to be.
I think it's going to be E4, E5, knight.
I'm going to go with I was about to say Berlin, but I really wanted to say Philidors.
Oh, indeed. And I think it's the D4 variation with the knight taking on D4, not queen takes, as we see it quickly happening now. So we can get to that. Looks like Magnus is taking a page out of, is it Dupov's book?
Yeah, I was about to say, Daniel has been, as Yobova has been playing the Philidor for many, many years. Daniel recently came up with some really intriguing ideas. And Bishop F4, Queen D2. At first blush, you wouldn't think that the bishop really belongs on F4. After all, isn't the structure of C7, D6 rather rock solid? But the idea is a little bit deeper than that. It's not that you want to play E5. It's really that you want to discourage the move D5. If Black ends up playing D5, we can all understand that, in fact, yes, the bishop could be very well placed on F4. So Bishop F4, Queen D2, preparing castles. And, well, Magnus has stopped, just simply stopped in what is a very topical position these days.
And in this position with Levant Aronian and Vitala Harikrishna, you'll be happy as the debate with the Caro Khan, particularly the advanced variation, continues, as Pentala did play the move C6 on move 1, and after E5 by Levant played Bishop F5. But Levant doesn't want to see any queen trades. He did drop his queen back to D1. That's the purpose of having the knight on E2.
Now, we've seen a number of times the inclusion of the moves H4, H5. Sorry to interrupt you, Maurice. But Bishop D3 was played immediately instead of that. And this is where we saw sometimes this check and Queen A6 in the Nakamura game versus Firouzja, combined with E6. But again, that was the inclusion of H4, H5. In this case, there's no H4, H5. The knight comes to E2. A little bit more flexible than on the F3 square.
Right, so this game is the game between Aronian and Harikrishna, and so this position we see here with the knight on E2. I was always taught, Yaz, that with the knight on E2, that this maneuver by Black was not that effective, putting the queen on A6. If you could castle easily, and then just bum rush the king side of Blacks, excuse me. White is able to just castle, bring pieces out, and get going with like an F4 push, F5 potentially, that this queen, that you should wait until the knight got to F3 before you play the Queen A5, Queen A6 idea. What's the wrinkle that makes this queen on A6 so strong, even though White is able to castle quite easily?
I'm not sure. I'm just not sure. One of the ideas of Queen A6 is, like you say, want to stop the guy from castling and putting your queen on the diagonal. The other thing that the queen on A6 sometimes does discourage is that the queen can show up on the front door with Queen D3. I'm not sure what the queen is doing on A6. Firouzja Nakobian will tell you, oh, your queen belongs on b6, your knight belongs on c6. You need to put pressure on the d4 pawn by playing knight h6 and knight f5. And that's what you got to do. Your queen actually doesn't belong on a6. This might just be a wrinkle that has to do with this very, very specific position. In general, yes, if the knight is on f3, the queen on a6 looks very good. With the knight on e2, it looks less good on a6.
Very strange.
Yeah, let's just
Interesting.
drop
Let's
in on the game
that
you wanted to see, Jen. And look at this. After e4, an Alekhine's defense.
Okay, Alekhine defense. Overrated, underrated, correctly rated.
Underestimated.
All right, like it.
Underestimated.
I agree in a way, because I feel like a lot of the positions I see with black in the Alekhine don't look as bad as one might expect from getting your knight chased around so early in the game. Like this one, for instance.
Right. Well, knight e5, queen f3. Man, queen f3. That's like, you know, a slap in the face. That says I'm going to try to refute you. Where as a chess coach, you know, you kind of tell your students, you know, be leery, be wary of developing your queen early. But queen f3.
Now, why bishop c4 and why not c4? Because the thing about queen f3 was it had an attack on f7, but it also looks towards b7. But this move could be a little greedy, right? Yes.
Yes, precisely, because there are counter issues, including knight c2 check, give me the rook, and including queen takes d4. I think we have all fallen at one time or another for such a tactic as this royal fork.
No, and
yes,
white's in a horrible end game. And so that brute force method doesn't work. So white gets on with his development.
Now, there is one very nice checkmating idea that we should all be very familiar with. A move like knight b4, and you're thinking to yourself, man, I can't wait to play queen takes d4 and knight takes c2. Well, you're going to have your universe rocked when somebody lands queen f7 and bishop f7. Oops, I feel bad.
That's a pretty one, a pretty pattern.
Don't move the knight. And Jeffrey did not move his knight. He played bishop g7, preparing castles. And of course, knight b4 starts to be attractive once the king is tucked away. And
good point. Yeah, because also when you take on e6, we can sometimes recapture with the tempo and the queen. But actually, that queen went to b3. Okay. Adding some pressure to b7. So queen takes b7 now is a possibility.
That looks really wrong to me. I mean, sorry.
Knight c6, yeah. So okay, so knight c6, queen b7, and I guess you're trying to play knight a. You're playing knight d4. Okay.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I definitely want to play knight d4.
And now if I play like bishop b5 check, trying to get your king destabilized. Yep, it is destabilized, but
yeah, right. I was going to say
that's the only bad thing about your position.
My friend Jeremy Silman and I used to play a lot of blitz together, and he had this great way of saying, "My turn." You know, you play a move like King F8, and I'm facing a multiplicity of threats, and it's like, now, you know, you got your check, but it's my turn. Knight c6 looks good for black, because you got to take, right? And then suddenly, isn't black the one with all the activity?
I see what you're saying. So if I play like a quiet move here, like c3 after knight c6. I want to take on c6 first. Yeah.
Yes.
After knight c6, pawn c6, c3, like some kind of quiet move. The problem is after rook b8. I'm running into some tactics with the bishop being undefended on c4. Like if I play queen d1, you might even just have something like knight takes c3.
True.
And you win a pawn, and you're going to get this lovely bishop on c4, preventing castling.
You had me at you win a pawn. Yeah, you could have stopped right there, Jen.
By the way,
Yes.
By the way, I mean, this one is interesting to be sure, and Jeffrey is pondering the nuances.
Knight C6, yeah.
But take a look at the barn burner between Lanier and Magnus coming out of this Philidor. Like, this is the kind of game we want to follow. Start, stop. Magnus decided after Queen D2 to play C6, and after Castles play B5, F3, B4, Knight B1, A5, and Lanier didn't back down. He said, okay, you can storm. Well, I can one up you, and I'm going to storm on the other side with a tactic hitting your knight on F and F6. Actually, this is just imitation being the sincerest form of flattery, because that's what Magnus just did to his knight on the other side of the board by playing B4. So here go two tremendous pawn storms, and Magnus has not only ignored the G5 move, he sacrificed the pawn with the move with the move A4. But it's not really a sacrifice. Queen takes B4 is met by C5. Thank you for the piece. So here we go, guys. Look at this attacking, crazy, wild, woolly affair.
Okay, this is great stuff. This is great stuff. But I got to tell you, I would be sweating cannonballs if I was black. I mean, not if I was white. The knight on B1, no, I'm not happy about it, but it offers comfort. What I'm really, really ecstatic about, I'm doing cartwheels and backflips. What about knight F5? Threatening knight E7, bishop D6, killing. If you take, which I more or less think you got to do, I've just opened up the G file, and wow, I'm going to get there fast down the G file. What do you think about them apples?
I got to tell you, I'm seeing a D6 pawn hanging, which I know you'll pretend you want to attack, but you'll decide to take the pawn along the way and then laugh at me because you got a free pawn for no reason. You do have the two bishops. The B pawn, once again, now we will take it. That is hanging.
Especially now that the knight is moved.
Because the knight is moved, you resolve that problem. And you were mentioning your attack with Rook G1? Like, what's not to like? That looks tremendous. Knight F5 just looks like a great move in this position. And I was going to say, Lanier's problem, typical. He spends a lot of time thinking. He's going to get in some time pressure potentially. Look at the clock situation. Lanier is the one who's up 3 minutes on the clock, and Magnus is the one who's taking some time to play this very risky, let's call it risky, potentially, I don't know what word to put on there. I mean, I know some words I could use, but I'm not liking black. I agree with you 100%. I'm really not liking black here.
If I'm in Lanier's shoes, this is absolutely the kind of chaotic mess on the board that I want to see. When I'm playing against Magnus, I've never played with Magnus, but if I were to play against Magnus, I wouldn't want one of those calm, positional grinds where we would both fight over the E5 square, or maybe we fight over the C7 pawn. But I want a Donnybrook, and wide open, chaotic, with kings on opposite flanks, where I'm in there with a really good chance of a knockout blow. And I'm a little bit surprised that Magnus has said, okay, Lanier, I may be black, I want to get you. I'm going to play a very, very risky middle game position, because that's what the world champion has decided to do. There's no coming back from this one, guys. There's no way to let's tamp it down, tap it down a little bit. Let's get rid of some of the excess energy. Knight F5 is going to be a real challenge.
Let's go down the line though, because there's only one move, it looks like, against Knight F5 after captures is the move D5.
Precisely. You got to, just because there's so many threats of, from White's point of view, Queen B4 is significant, Bishop D6 is the other pawn grab. So D5 effectively deals with both. You get your pawn, and I was going to play Rook G1, and I was hoping for the trap. Don't even think of capturing my pawn, because you're gonna be really unhappy dealing with this. This is the double threat of mate and one and the queen. But of course, you're not going to take you'll develop your knight instead. Well, can I go a little bit, well, not, Jen, help me out here. Do you like bishop h6 or e5? I like e5.
Well, yeah, bishop h6, I guess, 90, there's 98, right?
There's 98
yeah,
defending.
Yeah, and I mean, I would love to do bishop takes g7 type stuff, but f6 is just so well defended at the moment.
Right. I mean, I can't grab the d pawn, but I feel like
so maybe e5. Yeah.
Yeah, e5's got to be happiness, right? Black's going to have to sacrifice a piece here. I just don't see any.
Yeah, that looks really bad. So e5, yeah.
Whoa, wait.
Sorry?
Wait. Okay, so I'm just trying to track your analysis. So
Okay.
so this move e5, knight h5.
Knight h5, f6. That's a nasty
Now you
move,
could sacrifice
right?
a piece. You know, you can take on f6.
And I can't play bishop c5 because you're going to sack on g7 and play queen g2. No, you can't sack on g7 because I have knight f6 as the stopper there.
Maybe knight, maybe rook.
Well,
let's
quick
just
look, guys, at a very interesting moment in the game between Harikrishna and Nakamura. Our team is alerting us, and Firouzja says that Grishak has a great opportunity here.
blow
White
things
to
open.
move after
Just
b5,
rook
rook to c8.
c8.
Yeah, and
c6.
apparently he missed it. And the move that he missed, I'm hearing, is after b5.
Oh, b5 included, yes.
So after b5, rook c8. This was the moment that White missed a big opportunity.
Really? Okay. If it's something like knight takes d5,
Yeah.
sacrificing the queen, and knight
Yeah.
e7, I don't know. That's asking
Wow.
a lot for a rapid game. I mean,
Whoa.
wow.
Yeah, that looks like what he meant. Knight takes d5. Let's take a look.
Rook
That
takes
is
d3.
so-
Rook takes d3, knight e7 check, king f8. So what's the idea here? Knight, do we have the in-between move? Well, pawn takes c6, you just have rook takes c6, right?
Yes, we do. Maybe I should have put my king on h8 because I'm starting to stare a little bit at the bishop d6.
True. And then king e8.
If I put my king on
No. He's taking your
h8.
rook. He's taking your rook.
Sorry.
And there's
Okay, what? Sorry, I missed that.
So king f8, bishop d6, king e8. Now what?
So I've given up my queen for a bishop.
For a bishop.
No, but you can take there's a b8 problem all the way to b8.
Of course, we're going to take the rook. Yeah, okay.
Take the rook.
So rook c8, queen c8. And now what's the material balance here? All we have is a
Rook.
It's
A
enough.
rook
Take
with
the
a queen.
pawn. Take the pawn.
Okay. And now
On b6.
I'm threatening to take on c6. So
Correct, with either one. And you have to, knight b6 is met by taking on c6, I believe with a pawn, no?
Oh, with the pawn.
That's what I wanted to do, was take with the pawn,
But
because I'm
this
seeing the
is-
b8 square.
This is
Nice.
an incredible conception. I mean, this would be something like, even if somebody came up with this idea and won in a classical game, we'd be throwing go
Absolutely.
coins. That's more. But in a rapid game.
Very nice. Very nice. But okay, I mean, it's easy to overlook a move like knight d5. I'm
Well-
not going to be critical of that. That's an
Or-
amazing conception.
Or
But
to
it just
evaluate
prefer.
it like as good, even though you're down a rook for a queen. I mean, I'm sure it crossed his mind, knight takes d5, right? Like player of that level is
just
always
flashed.
looking at all the forcing moves and sacrifices. But to evaluate all the way down the line, that's marvelous.
Yeah. And instead he played a more positional continuation, and it looks pretty balanced now. Okay, let's go back to one of our tournament leaders. Whoa, this is a knight on c2, guys. Wait a minute. What just happened? We did not see knight c6. I apologize.
So he played.
We saw bishop e5, d e5, knight c6.
Ooh, okay. So Queen takes b7.
Wow.
Knight. Okay, now
Knight
he's
d4,
threatening to
threatening
trap
rook
the
b8.
queen. Threatening to trap the queen, right? Bishop to b5.
I mean, not
Give
just
me-
threatening to trap the queen, but threatening the bishop on c4 and the pawn on c2. That's a lot of threats. I mean, there's in one move.
You're
It's
right.
a triple threat.
Maurice,
huh?
that is a lot of
You're
threats.
trying-
1, 2, 3 threats. Yep.
Yeah, the triple threat. So he dealt with a couple of those, but he couldn't deal with this one.
Now the
Knight
bad
C2,
news is we're
king
not
E2,
even
and now
castled. Oh, what?
castles.
You just castle there? That's cold-blooded.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Have we mated? Bishop c4 check. The king's going to go for a walk. Bishop c4 check. King goes queen d3 check. We got to go bishop e3, right?
Yeah, I mean, let's try bishop b3.
e3.
Okay. Now, queen e2 check.
Be careful. These king walks, it's important that you don't let them get out. Check queen e2.
And then like knight takes e3, pawn takes e3, queen e3, you'd have bishop f3. But the point here is I'm not down that much material, guys. I'm only down a piece for 2 pawns after queen takes e5. Check.
Oh, no, that's completely winning now because queen e5 after king f2, now it's time to introduce the rook.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's...
For a second, I was analyzing, thinking that we were down like a rook and 3 pawns.
Right.
And I was like, wait a second, we're only down a piece for 2 pawns. We got this.
I mean, this is a no-brainer. Bishop c4 check. I think Jeffrey's completely...
So wait, what on earth happened there? Like, what was the blunder? Queen takes b7, right? You can't just snack on this pawn.
You know, I had a game against Patrick Wolf in the mid 90s. I think it was 1995, 95 or
Former
96.
U.S. champion Patrick Wolf.
Yeah, good friend. I was even his second in Beale when he was going for in the candidates. And we played a game where this almost exact same thing happened. The queen went after the b7 pawn, taking a knight on c6. I castled because the tactics allowed me to get rook in rook b8 and rook b6 and takes. I didn't win the game. It would have been one of the great wins of my life. I found a great move g5 in that game. It's one of the best games I ever played, up to the point where I screwed it up and ended up only getting a draw out of it because I thought I was chasing his king around, and the king, I would catch the king by chasing it, and he ended up being able to slip the noose, and I had to force a repetition. That's why I'm so concerned about the king in this position, because I'm having flashbacks to that game where if you're not careful, the king gets out. And that's exactly what Jeffrey's doing right now. He's trying to figure out, can he get away with something else nuanced? And he played rook to b8 instead of bishop c4. But this does allow queen, or does it allow queen to a6, stopping bishop to c4?
True.
Yes,
so we can bring in the queen and bring in the big gun, queen d4, threatening bishop c4, winning your queen, threatening queen takes e5. Do I have any other threats?
You don't need any other threats.
I'm terrified.
I mean, you're a wicked person, man. You named all those threats and you want more? Wow.
I'm feeling
Talk
bad.
about evil.
I'm feeling bad as it is. I mean, wow. Okay, just a second. Can I deal with, I understand what you mean, Jen, but can I deal with the threat of bishop c4 check by knight d2? Now,
right, and then when I take your pawn on e5.
Oh man, where am I?
No, and he's played queen a7, guys, allowing bishop to c4.
Wow.
Black has everything. Now bishop c4 and start the hunt. I mean, this looks ugly. There's got to be a straight. Well, let's find it. Is bishop c4?
Yeah.
Okay, let's bring in the queen again. Queen d3 check. That's what we did last time, right? And you can't play queen d3. You have to play bishop e3.
Right.
Material is what? We're down. Let's just keep track. We're down a piece. We can actually win the piece back if we felt like it with knight d. I know we don't, but
Yeah,
just
you're saying forced win.
Worst case, right? We can win that. So let's go after
see if
this.
we can't force the mate, because we were like here a while ago, right?
It should be 3. Mm-hmm.
Oh no. In this case, I'm sorry. Last time we were playing knight e3. I made a mistake. Sorry, I was playing knight e3 from
the bishop on e3. Although I mean, even there, queen e2, king g3, rook takes b2, but the king is got out of dodge, right?
Right. No, we don't like that. What do we like?
By the way, Jeffrey played knight back to d4 with check.
Okay, fair enough.
And Nepo played king back to e1, which of course we could repeat everything with knight to c2, check, just to restart. Or we could play knight takes bishop now that you can't castle, but you got to feel like there's got to be a cleaner win in this position than this.
True, but knight takes e6 looks really good. I mean,
no, but let's put that king back on f3. Come on, let's find something. We're good enough to find some kind of way of winning here.
You can't castle.
No, bishop c4. Let's do that. Bishop c4, king f3.
Queen d3.
I think you were onto something. Yeah, you said we need to get
queen
the
d3
in play.
Bishop e3.
Or something.
I was about ready to suggest f6 to
introduce another gun into the game. Yes,
precisely.
Big piece.
You know the problem. Excuse me. The problem with my game with Patrick was my rook on b8 wanted to get into the game, right? It wanted to get into the game, and along the 4th rank or the 5th rank. That was the challenge. So note that in this situation, a rook can go to b4, right? And suggest something. If you can't find a move, suggest something along the 4th rank. You feel me? You see the mating idea. Even something like a queen f5 and move the bishop out of the way, and suddenly you're getting mated, right? That's right. That's the key there. So we go back to the analysis board and take a look at that. Is it a rook b4, or is it just a forced line with queen f5 first, then rook b4? I just feel like, I know it's just something hiding in there, but I can't figure out.
So that you can somehow force a queen g4 or rook g4 kind of mate.
Crazy. There's got to be something.
I really think that rook on b8, if it's going to go anywhere, it really needs to land on b2. That's
another option.
I'm just a little shocked that I don't have a completely forcing win. Bishop d5 check, trade, king g3. That doesn't.
That's not it.
Are you sure it's not it? Just a second. What are we sure about? Because, by the way, I can always take this rook too. Hold on. If you're telling me I'm a piece down, I could be an exchange whenever I want. Okay?
This is true. But look at the youngster. He's been thinking for a long time. Jeffrey has, and he's the thing I would think he's thinking about is, should I take that bishop now or play knight c2 and then look at all those variations? But Yaz, you make a very good point. If we can always take the rook, why not go for this line? If it all comes to where we can't figure out a mate, the rook is sitting there waiting to be snapped on.
It's a rook.
It can't be bad. I mean, from a practical standpoint, your knight's getting out. The rook is taken on b2. The only thing you might worry about is something like bishop e4, but queen e2 check solves that problem pretty directly. So
as does bishop
d5. So, I mean, in the worst case, he can do that. I think he's looking for mate. That's what his problem is. He's looking for mate, and it may well be there, but that's what he's looking for.
Okay, knight takes a1. I do apologize. That really is a Yasser Seirawan move. Give me the material. That is not a Michael Tal move. Come on, Michael Tal. You give this position to Michael Tal or Gary Kasparov. He says, "I don't want your stinking rook." I'm missing something here. We may have to call in VAR here, but this. I mean, come on, you can't get away with this. Your king is
Yeah, it looks
terrible.
horrible. Looks horrible.
Oh,
I
did
mean,
we try rook d8 threatening knight d4?
Which rook? This one?
No. I
This
haven't
one?
decided. Maybe the other one, because your ideas of f6 in case they came into play.
Well,
But I know,
yeah,
that's weird because that one can take b2. Okay, yeah, sure.
also, we do have just rook takes b2.
rook b2 is good, looking good too. I mean, there's so many moves. This is
I
the
know.
problem that he faces. There are too many moves. He must be winning. He knows it, but he's looking for a mate, and it doesn't look like there's a forced mate. I think that's the problem. There's no check, check, check. This move, mate, you're finished. It doesn't look that way, and he's still looking. And at some point, he's going to have to decide to bail from a practical standpoint. Nepo is hoping he bails at 2 minutes, right? Like,
Yeah.
Okay, now instead of, because he's at 6 minutes, he's 10 minutes down, about to be 10 minutes down on the clock. And he has to make a decision. It's a rapid game. You have to be smart and make a decision. He's finally decided on the move rook to, he played knight c2, king e2, and rook to b6 in this position.
This
Rook
makes some
b6.
sense. So he's trying to play bishop c4 check and those queen d3 lines without having the bishop e3 as an adequate defense. Knight a3 was a quick reply by Jan Nepomniachtchi, not letting
Instant.
Yeah, he does.
Instant
I guess he
reply.
probably knows his position is rotten and figures, he should just try to, put that time pressure on Jeffrey, see if he can get him down to a minute. We know Jan likes to play very quickly sometimes.
But that that queen is looking very close to trapped, by the way.
Yeah, right. Knight d4 check and knight takes c6. I guess
Very attractive.
Still have the
Man, this reminds me of that game with Patrick. It's so close, except Patrick actually had his king castled. If that king was in the middle, I would have done work. But
what is Nepo's intention after rook takes c6, by the way? Just defending this knight?
Develop the bishop, right? Or, oh no,
Develop the
because you're going to take the rook.
Okay,
If you take the rook, what's the material? Yeah, something like that, maybe.
Okay.
Although I'm a little
Sorry,
scared about the attack still. I wasn't going to play that move. I was going to bishop e3, but he's trying to hope against hope to get his pieces out. Knight d4 check played, and I think
like
that
that
means
move.
he's going to take on c6. What's the material after he takes on c6? One pawn for your king sitting in the middle of the board, never to castle.
By the way, that one pawn, I'll take that back. It's not even a pawn. I mean,
Thanks for keeping count, Yaz. And if only White
count on me for that.
I mean, come on, guys. If you're playing over the board game, maybe your best chance is to just tuck to your king and castle and hope for the best.
By the way,
that's what has happened.
I do have to apologize. If you're going to take a pawn, do it with real gusto. Queen coming to d5. Now we're talking. I mean,
so many good options.
Pardon?
You're cleaning out so many great options. Queen d5 is beautiful, but he did choose the more prosaic knight takes e5.
He's in practical mode now. That's very important. It's clear that there was something there that Black could have done that maybe was different. We feel it. We know there was something. Maybe it was super deep. None of us saw it. Jeffrey said, I don't see it. So it's too deep. I'm sure people using the computers know what it was. That's cool.
Right.
But when you're sitting at the board and the clock is ticking down and you got to make practical moves, you've got to make a good decision. And what he's done is he said, we now have exactly even material. Now let's check to see who's better developed. Me. Let's see whose king is safer. Me. Let's see who can continue to make easy moves. Knight d3 is coming. Queen centralized is coming. Other rooks showing up. Let's see you find a move. Knight on a3, no moves. Bishop on c1. If you move, be careful. I got the b2 pawn hanging. Your king, when you try to castle it, there's going to be this rule that says you can't, as you moved it about 15 times already.
Imagine if you're a fan of Jan Nepomniachtchi here and you're like, okay, maybe he survived the worst. Just he finally gets the castle. Right. And then you scroll up and you're like, oh no.
Why can't he castle?
No can do.
If he could castle in this position, in this exact position, if he could castle,
maybe it's not so bad.
Life is not so bad. Just isn't important to be able to castle. If he could just castle, life would be so bad. He played bishop 8-6 hitting a rook, and Jeffrey stylishly just centralizes queen and says, you can have my stinking rook. I'm hunting big game. Queen G2, by the way. You can't castle queen side either.
Oh boy.
That
And-
looks like
well,
a
for
very powerful
multiple
move.
reasons.
Sorry, guys, this is absolutely a great game. There's no question about it. But I really want to see also what's happening with Magnus. Let me hunt him down. He was up against Lanier. Remember, that was a game that we thought, and by the way, Lanier did not play knight f5. He played h4, c5.
Okay,
He only played knight
forced.
f5 when he was forced to do it. Like, what? Why didn't you like to do it? Okay.
We chose a good time to leave this game, by the way, because it's like 4 moves got played.
That's all?
That's it.
They were difficult moves, but queen g2, king h8 on the board. We've caught up with the players, but okay.
We gotta leave this game, Yaz, because there's no way. I doubt that we have to leave this game. Let's get back to the leader about to potentially lose to the teenager. That's got to be.
Because I still want to understand, guys, after bishop h6, queen d5, the knockout after bishop takes f8, it's just queen takes g2, just queen takes e2. And now if you were to play rook f1, I just want to see some pretty mates on the board.
Well,
I'm sure
Knight
Jan doesn't want to see that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Jan. But this has been a great game by Jeffrey. Let us have some fun. Rook takes b2. Ooh, threatening knight f3 and king d1, queen f1 mating.
Don't forget bishop h3 as well. Bishop h3 is just like straightforward.
The rook on f8.
Everything is happening.
He played pawn to f3. Okay.
He got it.
But now, b2 is hanging with a mate threat. Bishop f8, queen d2, and queen f2 is mate.
What about rook d8 just to make you?
No, come on.
Oh, no, wait, rook b2. What am I talking about?
b2. Take
b2
the pawn.
Delish.
Not only is it delish, but there's some mating ideas suddenly everywhere, right? Knight d3 and
knight f3, queen e5 check.
Exactly.
Wow, this is an evisceration.
How many mates can we construct in this position? Rook
well,
takes
let's
b2.
start with rook takes b2.
There it is.
Just enjoy.
It's on the board.
Just enjoy what this looks like. I mean, you don't see an elite grandmaster like this just get completely decimated. I mean, this is terrible.
So imagine rook d1. Show us some of those mates you were referring to with like knight takes f3, right? Yeah.
He didn't want to see anymore. The game's over.
Oh, and look at that. A little bit of a hat tip.
No, thank you.
He smiled after resigning. He was glad to leave that game.
That was his best move of the game.
You know what he said?
He said great game by the teenager.
When they said, "What happened to you guys?" He said, "Well, I lost a pawn, and clearly I'm down a pawn.
I saw that pawn.
It's a critical pawn. I'm going to resign because it's up a pawn." Yeah, no, that king in the middle of the board. What a game by Jeffrey. Again, we may think that there's something stronger that could have happened, but the smart thing he did was play practically. He saw a position where he said, I don't see the win. Let me go for a position that I know is dominant. And he went with the rook b6, knight d4, take the bishop, take the e-pawn. Your king is stuck in the middle. Well judged from a practical standpoint by the youngster. That, this may be some blow, but he didn't see it. We didn't see it. That's a really mature decision on the part of the youngster to just do what is necessary to win the game. And he ended up winning in 21 moves. So I don't know what else might have been there, but 21 is pretty short. We call that a miniature.
I think he did pretty well in that game.
I think so too. What did you say that the viewers could do? There's a hash. They can
Saint Louis Rapid Blitz. There is a hashtag if you want to chime in and give your opinion on the day's play, the games, anything you want. And I'm sure you're right. Yeah, that game's going to get a lot of reactions. I mean, this tournament, we've already seen anyone can beat anyone, right? There are no weak points. So
no, the field is so strong. Just checking in on coming into today's game, we thought that this game was going to be deciding who was going to be in first, but it turns out that both Levon and Pentala lost the fourth round games, and they're trying to get back into shape here. Don't really know what to make out of this position. It's kind of confusing. Now can we go to the Magnus game? What do you guys think?
Let's do it.
All right.
Did we mention that Alireza and Wesley drew?
No, we were too transfixed on that Jeffrey game.
I believe that game in 20 moves is over.
And Naka and Grishuk as well.
Wesley drew that game very quickly, gone. We were talking about the youngsters. The youngsters are +1 this round against their esteemed elders. So don't count them out just yet. They may be making a comeback. But very importantly, from the point of view of the standings, Wesley is now in clear first as Nepo lost his game. Wesley got that point. And Magnus, with a win, can catch Wesley, but he's still far from that at the moment.
And Levon and Pentala, if either of them win their game, they could bounce back and get back into that tie for first that they started the day with a different approach.
A lot on the line.
That's right. So 2 great games to finish out this round, as we've got Carlsen, Dominguez underway, or Dominguez Carlsen, and Aronian versus Harikrishna. But Yaz is excited about this game, and I can't blame him. I was going to say all game Yaz that it looked like a Sicilian, but then I was like, that's a pretty dumb comment because there's a pawn on c6. Now I can really say it.
Yeah, it's not a Sicilian.
A close Sicilian, something like that.
Yeah, but what is it? We're not 100% sure, but I must say that Lanier is wasted is strong. He spent 2 tempi to play h4, h5, and move his bishop once more. This is not the scintillating attacking kinds of moves that I would want to have seen. I'm not that big a fan of what Lanier is doing. Now, h6 kind of sets up for, some dark square to combat, to fight over the dark squares. h6 by, another move I'm not really happy with either. When I look at the move bishop d3, I ask myself, what is my bishop doing on d3? I mean, is it just making room for a rook?
It's his next move, Yaz. If you follow, let's get to the position as he moved. He moved down after this rook move. He now played f4, and I think he was trying to put some pressure, some protection to his pawn on e4, and then maybe hoping one day to play e5. But I got to say, even that looks extraordinarily difficult to execute. Matter of fact, given a couple of moves, the move rook e8 is really specific in attacking the pawn, but also it weakens the f7 pawn. But if you don't chase my f7 pawn with the move bishop to c4, what moves would you play as white here? Would you play for knight d2, knight c4, knight d2, knight f3? I guess I'm answering my own question, try to bring the knight in, but I have to be really careful that you're not going to push some pawn on the other side just when I start this to try to open up lines. And it does look as though black has the flexibility on that side to make a move like a b3. Wow, b3 actually just stopped me in my tracks. What do you do after b3?
Yeah, no, b3. There was a marvelous, marvelous game from Linares way back in the day. And it was Mickey Adams was on the white side of an open Sicilian, a Najdorf, and Gary Kasparov in a Najdorf, and like Mickey went g4, g5, g6, g takes f7, opening up the g file, and Gary put a bishop on f6 and won an absolutely beautiful, beautiful game as black. The bishop on f6 is simply the monster defensive piece. Monstrously defensive piece. And I'm thinking that what you were saying about the knight on b1, Maurice, you could go to d2 and f3. I'm thinking of c3 as white. So if I could get a situation where I could aspire to eliminate this knight. Now, having said that,
knight f5 is always in the air, right?
Well, to begin with, but also having said that, I've opened up the B file against myself. Lanier has played bishop takes d4, by the way.
This was a concrete threat. Knight takes f5 was a concrete threat as well. And he's given up his bishop for this reason, which looks specific now that I look at it, because you want to play the move bishop takes d4. You don't want to shut down your bishop because you want to keep the bishop for the attack and potentially for the defense. But this move does allow a potential e5 that you have to calculate.
Right.
I'm not sure what's happening after bishop takes, rook takes, but there's a threat now on the g7 square, a potential for an f6 if you could get your queen on e4. I can't see it working at the moment just yet, as f6 is met by captures. And queen e4 would be met. Ooh, maybe queen e4, yes. Maybe queen e4 instead.
As Bent Larson might say, knight on f8, I don't get mated.
I'm not trying to mate you, actually. I mean, I'm lying. I would love to mate you. But
Yeah. Maurice, this is like a first. Maurice, I'm not trying to checkmate. I'm all about pawns, right, Maurice? You tell me.
It's like fib.
You. What? You're always trying to checkmate.
You hope you didn't pay attention to it, but no, I assumed you would stop the mate is my point, because you would notice the mate. And my deeper purpose is to create a position where I can play the move e6 and make you sit on this piece, because now I've only given up an exchange. I'm not down a rook. I'm just down an exchange. And I'm hoping that now I can use the very nice pawn on e6 and say, yeah, you're stuck. And I'm going to put something.
By the way, Magnus said, you're right. You're right, Maurice. I don't want to allow the move e4, e5. I'm going to keep my bishop on f6. Reluctantly or otherwise, he did take with the pawn. We've got knight d2, knight c5, knight c4 on the board. Bishops of opposite colors, suddenly it's, well, whose ball game is it anyway? What do you think, Jen? Do you like black? Or
Black,
do you like
all
black?
day. Look at
the
the progress we've made. Unless you have like some very specific tactic involving e5, it's like I feel like you have like one idea and black has a lot of ideas.
Right.
That's the problem. Like if e5 has to work, that's it. That doesn't work, you're going to lose a game. So that's not good. That's not good when you're playing against Magnus and he knows exactly what your intentions are.
Okay, check this out.
We do have
look where we are. We have b3. Now, the typical response to b3 is capture with a c-pawn, like every Sicilian player with the white pieces knows. Take with the c-pawn, and then play a3. And then dare the guy to figure out how to attack you because you blockaded that side. Now, players with black have figured out how to sack on a3 somehow. Just anyway, anyhow, somehow they figured out how to do that. In this specific position, though, the knight is under threat, and this could cause a tremendous amount of embarrassment. So that's why Lanier has started with the move king to b1. And trust me, he wants to take that pawn on b3. But he noticed the tactic. And yes, he wants to play this move a3. But the thing about a3 is that you open up the b line. You give black the ability to take on c2 and open the b line, so black keeps an avenue of attack. If you can use that pawn as your spy, right? Pawn takes on b3 and make the black pawn stand in the way, then you can get away with a3. So I think that's the threat, is to take and play a3 and say, how do you ever get at me? And now it's my turn to try to figure out how do I ever get at you with the move e5 and get the attack.
So to clarify for our viewers, if I make a very bad move like rook e7, you're saying that strategically, this is where Lanier is aiming.
This is the kind of setup he wants, yes.
Right. So he kind of shuts down the b file, shuts down the a file, and hopes that his king will find a safety on the b1 square. So,
and by the way, note that e5 is a real threat. I'm starting to wonder about this Thor of the bishop on f6, because e5, that square is not protected.
True, right? But we can oftentimes sacrifice with the exchange to keep beautiful bishop and try to limit your ideas.
Good point. Very good
point.
So,
I mean, that's where suddenly maybe you can do some kind of fun stuff like f6 and queen e4. but that's a fantasy. White's got pressing problems here.
Well,
Magnus captured on C2.
Right. I was about to say, is there anything to do with just the simple? I like the point you were making, Maurice, which was to take on B3, play A3, shut things down on the queen side. Since Black doesn't want that to happen, why not take on C2 and play Rook B8 and say, okay, I've got a very concrete idea as well, which is to play D3 and bishop takes B2. And Lanier said, I don't want to see D4, D3. And he's just played the move bishop D3.
That's a wise move if it works. Shut down the play on the light squares. Shut down the play on the dark squares by re-emphasizing your control of the light squares. And this is saying, what are you going to do if you ever play A3? I'm going to play, well, I might think about taking it. I may have to take it actually because I don't want to play B3 and you sack on me.
No, I'm really not a big fan of this move, bishop D3 at all. I'm starting to look at, okay, I'm starting to look at Rook B4 and Rook B8 ideas. Let me play Queen C7. So I'm setting up the pretty obvious takes and takes. But what I really want to do is make room for Rook B8 and Rook B4 and Rook B8. So what are you going to do about Queen C7?
All right, so knight D3 is a threat.
Big time.
Yeah, that's a good move. And knight D6.
Knight D6, E5. If you take, I was going to recapture with the queen.
Yeah, that looks pretty good to you. I mean, that knight on C5 is definitely dominant over the bishop on D3.
There's those pawns on the king side that are not going anywhere that really present the challenge. He's played Rook B4, by the way. Rook B4 and A3 occurred instantly.
By the way, in the other game, I don't want to move to it because it's not as thrilling as this one, but Levine is up a pawn. He's up a pawn and they have only a little bit over a minute each left. So he might be trying to regain his lead that he started the day with.
Very
so
good.
What did Magnus plan here? If he put his rook on B4,
yeah, I thought that Queen C7 is a prelude to Rook B4, but Rook B4 also sets up knight takes D3, and that's why we saw A3. I'm assuming that he wants to play Rook B3, chase that bishop backwards.
Back to C2 to attack you, and then
drop back maybe to B5. I really want to keep the idea of D3 and Rook B8 and Queen C7 all alive. He hasn't played Rook B3. He did play Rook B3. So.
And then Bishop C2 almost instantaneous, and then Rook B8 also instantly by Magnus. Guys, keep in mind, 30 seconds left for Lanier, a little over 2 minutes for Magnus. This is not going to be a position that they are going to calculate to the end and figure out the perfect moves. It's going to be a hustle now.
So E5, guys. E5 looks like the move that Lanier has been avoiding all this time. And Rook takes is your idea, Jen, which I think makes perfect sense.
I would love to play something as white like F6 and Queen E4, but that knight on C5 protects the money squares, right? Maybe I could get my queen to F5 though, you know.
But hold on, the main issue is this: if you're up in exchange, right, for a pawn, you don't have to mate white. I'm gonna mate black. You don't have to do that. You just have to make sure that black doesn't mate you.
And this is appearing in the board. Rook E5, Bishop E5. This position is now alive. 15 seconds left for Dominguez.
So what about a move like Bishop D3 here? Consolidate as much as you can and say to, and he has played Bishop D3, and say to black, how do you beat me? Your knight on C5 is a nice, attractive piece, but it has nowhere to go. It just, you know, black has just retreated. What if I bring my rook to the E file and I think about maybe even doubling on the E line? Forget about that straight attack. Now he's played queen to C2, really consolidating the light squares. And I'm seeing this weird idea of doubling on the E line. And if I ever get rook E8, I have a queen G6 check when your king goes to H7 and mating you with that idea. So I'm
fantasy variations for everyone.
I got some fantasies. I agree. If I could get the rook down to the back rank and then I drop my queen on G6, that's mate. You take me with your pawn, and I mate you. So
You
now,
gotta have a dream.
No, but the point is, Black has to defend against this because the rooks are going to go to the E line and play against and play for this one thing. I don't see any attack on the king side directly. It's got to be the open file, and it's got to be the work with the rook. The rooks,
right.
I should say.
We've just seen the move Queen C2. We saw it. I was going for Queen B6. I love the knight on C5. Actually, I think that's a great square. I guess Magnus wants to keep the B3 square in reserve for his rook. I was thinking Queen B6, but Magnus played Queen A5
and Rook
again,
G2 instantly.
Rook G2 instantly defending B2 laterally because I'm sure opposite. I'm sure Magnus would love to be able to play Rook to B3 followed by D3 to unleash this bishop. And wow, 14 seconds.
Queen takes D3, Queen D5, hitting the rook on G2. By the way, credit where credit's due. Lanier has been playing some great defense with 15 seconds on the clock, and he's just played the move rook to E2.
Can you smell an idea? A fantasy?
Yeah.
Was that the check on E8 and the queen gets to G6 fantasy? But what's the story after?
The computer
H7.
bar just went nuts after this last move.
After Queen E4. Because
Queen E4.
Rook B2.
Because of Rook B2.
It's been played. Rook takes B2.
Oh,
you can't take with the rook. If you take with the king, there's what? Queen B3 check or D3?
And that is just D3, and that has unleashed the bishop from F6. His pressure has cost him the game. Queen E4 trying to trade was a mistake. And now the queen and the bishop together are going to just rip that king apart.
Why? What's the move here?
So sad. I mean, first of all, I want to...
Queen C5 check, king D2, Queen C2, king E1. Why am I resigning? Oh,
bishop H4. Bishop H4 check
on E2 at some point. Yeah,
no, bishop H4 check immediately.
And then king F1.
In your exact line. And then I take on D1.
Both my rooks.
Yep.
Right.
That's it.
Both of the rooks.
King back, bishop H4. There you go.
Because
beautiful
Queen H4,
finish.
Queen E2 mate. Right.
Yep, exactly.
What a nice combination by Magnus Carlsen. Can we go back to it? He won. He won the game.
Nice.
Although Levon are still playing. Levon and Pentala are still playing.
But
beautiful
finish.
What
a beautiful shot.
After that mistake.
We'll have to take a look at that more closely. But Levon has an extra knight for a pawn against Harikrishna. So he has to try to keep that pawn on the board. Notice that he's tried to stop the move knight F1.
Right.
I mean, he doesn't have to. Some of the end games with two knights versus a pawn are winning for white, right? But
I remember we said murderer's row, right? For Pentala.
Feeling it.
He had Nepo to start, and now Levon. And guess who he has next round?
Magnus.
Magnus,
fun to go through that. Absolutely not.
All right, so king c5 was played. Okay, knight b5.
That's a strange move because now after king c4 or king b4, guess what? The knights are connected.
Which is not something you want. Which is definitely not something you want.
King f4 played now.
And now the king is just going to go back and forth. I think that's just a draw. He's got a positional draw on the spot with king c4, because whenever you go king to d2 to release one of your knights, then comes this nice move, knight f1.
Exactly. What a beautiful pendulum there.
This is a
easy.
That's why they call them the superfluous knights or the codependent knights. But
I think in this case, it's the codependent knights. Yes.
Yeah. Right now, they're not doing a good job.
They're not doing a good job. Also, knight f1 would have been perfectly good as well as king c4. But this is easy now for Harikrishna.
I think they've actually been repeating. So as soon as this game is a draw, we can find out what the story will be. It'll be Magnus tied with
Wesley.
Wesley, right? Magnus and Wesley at the top.
A draw has been agreed, but if you don't mind, I just got to go back to that moment
Please
at
do.
the
I
end of
felt
the
the same
game
way.
where it was just sort of like Queen E4. You're right. The computer bar went crazy. And if you had this position, you kind of want to play Queen E4, but on the other hand, you've got to be so leery of opening up the bishop. Queen E4, talk about spotting opportunity. And, this is such an easy move to miss, right? You could move your queen and you would think about, well, maybe I'll take this rook, I'll take this pawn. But to spot rook takes B2, and it's a gorgeous finish. I mean, this
So let's
is
go
really...
through all the lines. So king b2, d3 check was the concept, and now we're forced to go king c1. We don't have any other moves, really.
Right, because king c1 also walks into queen b3, which is kind of transpositional, actually. So king c1, queen c5 check. King b2.
Okay, so wait. Now what happens if you go back to king b1?
Now what happens if we go back to king b1? Okay,
I mean,
just a second. Could I go check and take the rook?
Just the simple chess. Just take that, and then if I try to save myself with something like rook e1, you have queen b2 mating, and rook d2, rook d2 would allow. Let's see.
I can.
Doesn't look good. I'm like.
Yeah, I got bishop g5 on tap. Yeah.
Now you have f6 check though, so.
I got bishop. Yeah.
Not that it matters, because the bishop you could just allow that. Yeah.
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 Don't I get to the back crank here with queen c5 check?
That looks
good. That looks good. Yeah, because actually I had second thoughts about f6. Maybe you don't want to allow that. So yeah, queen c5 looks like a better move. So that's outstanding to calculate this.
I know, it really is. And it was when they were in time pressure too, but this gorgeous finish with bishop h4. Wow. I mean,
bravo.
When Magnus gets to write his book, My Best Games, it's going to be a trilogy, and they're going to be 700 pages thick. What's our standings, Jen?
Well, we've got co-leaders once again. Every Wednesday, we've had two people at the top of the leaderboard, and it's never been the same two people.
Right.
And
new leaders every time.
The pattern holds as Wesley, So, and Magnus Carlsen are tied for the lead with 3 chasers. And they are Nepomniachtchi, Aronian, and Harikrishna, all with 6 points. Will the lead change hands once again, or will there be a sole leader at the end of day 2?
By the way, could we go back to that position very quickly? Just the finish, because there's more to it.
Please.
Okay.
There's more to it, right? Because
King F1, you mean?
King F1, Queen D1.
And then rook
This
E1.
is where I stopped. Yeah.
Yeah, King F1, Queen D1.
Yeah.
And then
rook E1 forced.
Yeah.
We're saying you're winning both rooks, but you're actually just getting back your material. So bishop takes on E1.
Okay. But now I've got.
Yeah, you don't want that.
F6 and this F6 is coming. Exactly. So let's.
He could have played rook E1 and said, okay, let's. Oops.
True. Good point.
So is it because you can trade off all the pieces and play G6?
And take with my queen, of course. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because that's the only other line to play for. So queen takes, and then in this position, your D pawn is going to drop, but G6 is going to highlight the H pawn strength, and this is the problem. Exactly. And that's how now you're winning.
Now you're winning. As we go on,
that's a lot, by the way. That's a lot. What? You don't calculate that immediately. Your instincts take over there. You just think.
Yeah. I mean, I think he saw a lot of lines that just seemed like they were minimum perpetual, but probably winning. But it's absolutely extraordinary. Like that tactical alertness. Queen E4, rook takes B2. That's beautifully done by the world champion.
And as we go on our break, we've got a special for our viewers as we've asked the players, how do they stay in shape for this competition during the lockdown.
What has life been like for you since the lockdown, and how do you stay in shape to compete?
Yeah, I think I, how to say, degraded during the lockdown. Clearly, I mean, I think I'm playing much worse than I used to before that.
As a professional chess player, there are a lot less tournaments, and there's a lot less competitions. There are actually no serious competition, because I consider classical chess to be the serious chess, right? To be the big one. So a lot of things have changed. There's a lot less chess, but at the same time, everybody in the world is affected. So it's not an ideal year.
I mean, life has been pretty good these days. I stream primarily every day, so I just stay sharp with chess via tactics or playing against other top players who are online. So in general, just mix of everything, but just keep it casual, but always staying sharp.
Yeah, well, it's not easy. Sometimes I just miss the over-the-board tournaments and games, just moving the wood pieces. But yeah, it's not easy, of course. But I'm training. I'm keeping up to date, and yeah. It is not easy, but fortunately there are some online tournaments that keep me a bit busy.
Well, it's been a bit strange, of course. I've been trying to keep in shape, like trying to do some training. I haven't played so much, so I played a couple of tournaments, online Nations Cup, and then I played the clutch matches. And then I played this tournament in the Leon Masters.
Yeah, I analyze things. I try to solve tactics every day. I try to stay active, just physically active. So I go for a run now and then. I play some basketball. So I mean, right now I'm in Berlin, so it's pretty relaxed here.
Well, I don't really think I'm staying in just shape. It's actually very special, because I really miss those let's say OTB tournaments. The whole thing, the atmosphere, the chatting between players in between or during games, and you don't really feel your opponent when you only see him on Zoom. So this is like very different.
At the beginning, it was quite tough for me to see that event after event getting cancelled and unable to travel. And for chess player, this is like a torture.
My main source of training since lockdown has been playing tournaments. There's been a lot of them, and I would say for such a format of playing online and playing rapid chess, I should be in good shape.
Fortunately, there have been many online events that I've been able to participate, so in terms of playing and finding tournaments, it's been better than I could have hoped for. And in the same way, I've used those events to stay in shape, and I'm always working on other areas of the game, primarily the opening, to make sure that I'm ready when the tournaments come back.
Hello and welcome back to the St. Louis Rapid in Blitz. And guys, I actually think that was the best round yet. I mean, I was on the edge of my seat the whole round. Jeffrey's win. I mean, Jeffrey's win and Magnus's win were in the same round, and it feels like it was two different rounds because it was so action-packed. Indeed, the teenager Jeffrey Xiong truly impressed, but he's still languishing on the bottom half of the score table, although he did get a little bit of a bump But the big story is Magnus Carlsen back in the lead, a troubling event after that disconnect on day one, but he is already back and in a tie for first with Wesley So.
And for me, it was really impressive that Magnus said, like, I'm going to target you, Lanier, with the black pieces. I'm going to play a real challenging game. But look at this. We've got to move on. Round 5 is over, everybody. Look at the pairings for round 6, Jen.
Yeah, in just a few minutes, we're going to get these pairings started. Magnus playing against Harikrishna. Wow. And emboldened Jeffrey Xiong against Levon Aronian. Naka versus Nepo, huge battle there, guys.
That's a goodie.
Yeah, that
and
one.
Wesley So,
Wesley So,
our tournament co-leader versus Sasha.
Yeah, I mean, I love that pairing too. I don't really know where to go. I mean, obviously our co-leaders playing with the white pieces is definitely fun games to watch, because if either of them win and they're the only one to win, they go into day 3 with the sole lead.
Those are the 2 games. Those got to be the critical 2 games. Although I think Hikaru and Nepo, we're going to have to keep our eye on as well, as we do with all the games, but just early on to keep our eye on the 2 leaders. Magnus has shown himself to be remarkable so far in this event. You think about it. He disconnected. I mean, he disconnected in one game, but look who he's beating. Look at this guy. He's just smiling and laughing and happy and relaxed. We saw him relax at the top of the day as though he had already digested the thing from yesterday. No biggie. It happens. Let's move on. He beat Naka.
Right.
He's beaten Aronian. Right. He's taking them down one by one. Like you put somebody in front of me, knock. Okay, no problem. Boom. Mm-hmm. And the game that he really kind of had a little something, and the Nepo really challenged him is the disconnect game.
Right.
Other than that, this guy he just does it again and again and again. It's an easy person to pick to win the tournament. I wonder who picked him, by the way. That's just pulling a Yasser Seirawan early on.
Well, I must say, day 2 has been very, very favorable indeed for Magnus. He came into today, just as you said, relishing the chance to get over the disconnect game. He had 2 whites. He started with a very nice victory, and then suddenly this game, I see that game that he just played as some kind of a massive turnaround game, because I got to tell you that after that knight f5, I just didn't like h4, h5 follow-up by Lanier, but it sure felt to me like white was pressing big time there. But Magnus turned it around. What can I say? He's playing. It almost feels like he's playing in a league of his own, right? I mean, Hikaru really is the guy who's challenging him in these remote tournaments.
It's a big point when someone is playing against a player they feel they're better than or shouldn't compete on the same level. He sees a Hikaru, he might be a little bit more circumspect. Mm-hmm. He sees a Nepo, okay. You might see Lanier and say, I think this is the guy I can play an opening that may not be the best, but he might not handle it the best way either. Right. And then if I have to, I'll take some chances. I'll just push those pawns on the queen side. Yasser Seirawan, positional player, understands you can't just get away with that stuff. I'm going to play knight f5. I'm going to try to squeeze you. But Lanier, who's shown the penchant for getting behind on the clock and not necessarily playing up to his best play, and then he gets into time pressure, and in the final position, the position where he plays this queen e4, he should be okay. I mean, he's blockading that d pawn. That bishop cannot be allowed to come into the game. Mm-hmm. And then he makes that slip queen e4, and that was it. Like the first slip you make is your last. The guy's not missing it. He's going to hit you, and you're going to go down. So it's interesting to see how Magnus will play very aggressively, like in a sort of super aggressive style, take some chances because he wants to win, and you better prove that you can hang with him on every single move.
Always a challenge, of course, and there he is. I mean, Jen, what can you say? This guy is on a streak that really defies all odds. He seems to be playing at a 3,000 TPR virtually every tournament. And when he does slip up, well, somehow he quickly rights the ship as well.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about online chess is I think one of the reasons it benefits a player like Magnus Carlsen is basic math. There's online chess, you don't have to travel. There's more time for more games. And the more games there are, the better it is for Magnus.
for the higher rated player.
Yeah.
A larger sample size is always going to benefit the better player. We see that in poker. We talk about getting in volume. Well, in online chess, it's easy to get in volume. You'll even see that the schedules online are a little bit faster paced, even with the same time controls. That's because you don't have to physically reset a board and, have the players physically move away and, get a drink of water. Everything is just crunched a little bit, which benefits a player who wants to get in more games. And that's why, Maurice's pick was really a great one, because even though Magnus had an even score going into the beginning of the day, there's so many games left.
And by the way, could we make this big point? There are 4 rapid games left. The field cannot afford for Magnus to keep winning. Or just
exactly.
There are 2 points for every single game. You might be a monster of blitz like Hikaru is, but Magnus is pretty decent at blitz himself. So if you're Hikaru, for example, who wants to make a run at some point, you see yourself 2 points behind Magnus. You can't afford for Magnus to win this game and you only draw. That's going to be 3 points, and every win you have at blitz is only 1 point each.
Right.
You cannot let this guy start racking up points. And by the way, Magnus has 3 games tomorrow to get another 6 points. So people have to keep pace with him right now. He's just won 2 in a row, and he's looking for a third. And when that Magnus train starts rolling down that hill, it's like, slow this guy down. Somebody stop him, please. So this is a very big game right now for the entire tournament, as far as I'm concerned. If he gets his confidence the way he does, forget it. Tomorrow he comes in and racks up some more points, and we'll know the winner before we even start the blitz.
But look at this. It stumped him, Yaz. C6.
E4, C6.
C6 again.
Now, we have been seeing a lot of D4, D5, E5, Bishop F5, advanced variations, including Magnus playing the black side himself. But you're absolutely right. Magnus kind of stopped and said, okay, do I want to play the advance? But this time he comes up with a short defense, Nigel Short line with knight F3, bishop E2. And very quickly, Harikrishna has played C5 castles. Normally speaking, knight E7, knight C6 is my favorite treatment. Knight C6, queen B6 is also very, very, very well known. There's in heavy theoretical water, C2, C3. This was played against me in my match with Boris Spassky, C2, C3. I didn't take immediately on D4, but this seems to be the latest and greatest in theories these days. Knight takes knight E7. So it seems like everybody knows this position.
Just like everybody knows the initial position.
Right.
That's nice. How far can you go, right?
Right.
How far, how deeply have you studied it? Do you know the nuances? And will you know when the new move shows up, how to handle it? So this one is interesting. The other game we're keeping our eye on is the one with Hikaru and Nepo, I believe. Or was it Wesley? Was it the Wesley game we were trying to
Well, let's just keep
the leaders.
Okay. So this Queen's Gambit declined with the bishop F4. Again, this was very challenging in London World Championship match. Magnus Carlsen white, Fabiano Caruana black in a number of games. Knight D7, C7, C5 is the main move. Knight D7 does give white the opportunity to try to clamp down. Not what Wesley did. Wesley went for bishop E2. So they're still in the opening. Back to, that was my question. Right here, after knight E7, knight takes F5, knight takes F5. It looks like a great French defense for black, right? I mean, there's a missing bishop and there's a missing knight. But now having said that, after the move bishop to D3, you can't take the pawn. knight takes, bishop takes, and oops, I walked into a killer pin. So after bishop d3, Vitala had to play g7, g6, refortifying the knight and preparing to take the pawn now. But I have the time for rook e1, and it's kind of funny. On the one hand, strategically, black is very happy. He traded off his bishop. On the other hand, white has a very free and easy game in this position. Queen e2. Okay, that's a little surprise move. Queen e2.
Why is that surprising to you guys? You just feel like rook is a much more natural defender of the pawn?
Yes, exactly. Okay, now there's no choice. I have to play f4, right? I'm sorry, Jen, you were about to ask
I was
something.
wondering if maybe he wanted to keep the rook on f1, thinking that after f4, perhaps that rook could come in handy.
Unlikely, but okay. f4, I'm assuming this knight is going to quickly swing from b1 to f3, and maybe black will try to break open the center with f7, f6. You were mentioning
maybe if they play f6, we can play like knight f3, and we don't have to worry about. I mean, I know normally you would take on f6, but perhaps I'm still trying to make sense of what you were saying about why the queen and not the rook, and here that rook at least protects the open f file. But I don't know. This does look like a model French position, doesn't it? Like the thing about the French.
Yeah.
You don't really, I know this wasn't a French, this was a Caro, but in this structure, you don't usually want to take it with a pawn because now all your pieces are kind of bottled in, right?
And the e5 pawn could be really targeted by black's minor. So I think if we do see f7, f6, I think it's almost required that white take it. Now, if he does take it, queen takes, knight f3, you do have the two bishops.
Rook e8 here, rook on e8.
It feels a little bit more comfortable for white, but it's
I was going to ask who you prefer playing here, because you are a Caro-Kann player. Do you prefer playing black here? Like, not like who do you think is better, but who would you rather be?
I feel it's easier to play white because even after I get in the desirable e5, I haven't completely and fully equalized. I like the two bishops. The jury's still a little bit out for me. I would say it's just kind of an even position.
By the way,
overall, though, I think it's easier to play white. Sorry, Maurice, please.
It's going to look very familiar, the position between Dominguez and Alireza Firouzja.
Yeah, this is like Hikaru Nakamura versus Magnus Carlsen. But wasn't that with a rook on d1?
And a knight was on b6, if I remember correctly, where the capture on c4 was met by queen b1. So some real differences. I think it's because Magnus. No, they took on.
Because I think it was like knight d7, bishop here, or no, there was a rook on d1 for sure.
Right, but there's a bishop on e7, right? The bishop was on g5. The white bishop was on g5, and the bit.
Yeah, no, it went like knight d7, rook here, knight here. There was somehow, like, I don't know, how did we get it? Remember?
Yeah, no, he played c5 at some point, and after. But I think your rook is misplaced. I forget the exact position because remember he played queen b1, but the a rook was on d1, not the f rook.
No, because the knight went to f1 and to g3, Maurice, in that game.
Right, I agree. Okay, we're gonna have to go find the game.
Never mind.
Reset our memory. But this pawn structure we do know is exactly the same.
Exactly.
So that at least we know. And the c5 break happened very early. And after takes on c5, if you play the move c5 and the guy takes it, you would assume that you knew your next move.
Yeah, well, I think it's pretty straightforward that he does intend to play knight to d7 and recapture with a gain of tempo. The queen, is a very attractive target in the center of the board.
So why is he waiting so long then?
Why is he waiting?
He played c5. Is he shocked his opponent allowed his next move with dc5?
Maybe he didn't think takes on c5 was the best move. By the way, he's sporting the same colorful shirt, Jen, that you liked on day one.
Yeah, it's a great shirt.
That is great. He took on c5, and you're right. I would have thought that he's, really, really ready. Let's quickly just check in on the game between Hikaru and Xiong. Okay, as we expected, both these players played very quickly. Looks like a Maroczy bind kind of a position with a missing dark square bishop for white.
Not good. You want that light dark squared bishop, right?
Ooh, but check this out. F5, bishop takes F5. Oh.
The knight on B3 is loose.
Precisely. Did Hikaru blunder a pawn?
Yes. You know why I know?
Why?
Because I'm looking at Hikaru.
But
I don't have to do anything else.
He's upset. How can you tell he's so upset?
I mean, look, Hikaru is like, what the heck?
Cool tactic though. Bishop takes F5. It just goes to show you at all levels. You tell kids or adult beginners that you gotta watch for those loose pieces. But hey, that applies to the best players in the world too. You still have to look for those loose pieces, even when you reach a rating of over 2,800, as you see Nakamura has here in the universal rating system.
But you're absolutely right, Jen. You should always be aware of loose pieces. But when you look at White's position and you look at this knight on b3, you kind of have this awareness. Yeah, it's not defended. But at the same time, you're probably thinking to yourself, nobody can possibly attack the knight on b3. Oh, this is so cool. I get to trap the bishop on e6. This must be fantastico for me. Until you go there. Oops, the knight on b3 is suddenly hanging. In this position, Nakamura has played the move c5.
C5. He chose c5. Oh, quick question, Yaz. What about, what was Nakamura's idea with f5? Like, for instance, if I played knight takes b6 first, why would that have been bad? So if I played knight takes b6 first, then
I think the same thing. He was thinking that now the knight would have to move, let's say, to c8, right?
And then you'd get to expose my king with e takes f7 check, indeed.
And maybe bad things start.
Yeah.
Well, hold on.
Very quickly.
Stop, please. I don't understand. The knight is not under attack, right?
I know. That's the whole point. He could have still taken on e6 and said, yeah, you still can't take me, right? So,
true, though. Takes on f8 is
because there's takes on f8. And you can't take with the queen. Is that a problem?
Right, that's the question.
Yes. Bishop, suppose we take with the bishop.
If you take with the bishop, you do allow knight d4. Hold on, can we? You're going to be down a piece. So let's just at least look at this line. No, I'm taking the b6 knight. I'm taking the b6 knight because I'm going to be able to move my knight.
Right, because now queen d6, the bishop was on g7 before.
Right, but the problem is you do have e5.
Yeah, or bishop g7 and then e5.
Bishop g7 and then e5 is the same. So that's just the thing you would have to look at. And also, is there another move? Queen d4 after takes. What about queen d4?
Well, now you can
I'm taking the knight. Yeah, sorry. I'm taking the knight.
Showing this line.
Queen d4.
And
now bishop g4. Your idea.
Yeah. Bishop g7.
But you do have bishop g7, and you're still in the game.
Black's up pawns, right? A pawn? Yeah. A pawn. When you take on e6, it's going to be one pawn, but, my bishop on g7 is also going to be beautifully well placed. But, okay, the reason I wanted to ask about this variation is this gives us some insight also into why Hikaru might have missed it, because there was actually a lot of variations to look at with pawn takes e6 as well, right?
Right, and you're kind of feeling like you're running downhill a little bit there for White. So that was why f5 looked very attractive. But now after c5, and the threat, of course, is to take the knight in either way. So now knight c8. And Jan says, excuse me, but I'm a pawn up, and this bishop is an absolutely fantastic piece. I love Black's position. I think that if I could get these types of positions with Black, I would never deviate from this opening choice. Very, very nice. Quickly take a look at Wesley. So
No, stay away from this game. Just kidding. You can look at it.
looks a little bit boring. Back to Magnus for a second.
Well, to be fair to the Wesley game, it could it's just there's so many other interesting games, and that one does look rather balanced, right? I mean, Wesley with slight pull with the bishop versus the knights, but
Jen, just admit it. Even if it was the only game, we wouldn't want to look at it.
It wasn't that great. Okay,
it's not going to end in rook takes b2 like Magnus's game.
No,
what was the killer blow in Jeffrey's game that ended the game? Also rook takes b2.
Oh, wild! You're right.
I didn't notice that.
Good catch. Good catch. Rook b2 was the power move of that round. Ended. Well, Jeffrey's rook b2 was tougher though because it just ended life. Rook b2, the guy didn't want to make another move.
No,
of course, Magnus's shot was superb. To find it in that moment was clearly superb. So I'm being facetious, but
we just saw this move, Queen d8 by Harikrishna, as he's eyeballing Queen b6 check. Also, it's like the Queen, in these kinds of positions, the Queen somehow is just not very good on f6. It blocks the bishop, and there are a lot of times that you actually want to attack the pawn on f4. You want to play, let me just put a move on the board. You want to sometimes play moves like knight d6, knight e4, bishop h6, and the queen on f6 is just kind of in the way. I like this move a lot by Harikrishna to play queen d8, put the queen maybe on c7, d6, or b6. And by the way, at a certain moment, if you're willing to allow e6, e5, if it works out tactically, Black is just fine. So, by the way, Magnus playing very slowly, Jen. What's the time differential? Almost 3-2. Darn.
A nice 7.5 minutes down on the clock at the moment is Magnus as he's trying to get this end of this position.
Yeah, a little bit of a struggle for Magnus here.
It's not easy. You have on the analysis board king h1. His king is actually still on g1.
Oh, excuse me.
And he's trying to figure out what to do to make this position go from A to B, because you look at it, it's really not easy to figure out what White's plan should be here.
Yeah, the ideal setup. Yeah.
What is the setup, right? I want to play maybe B3 and put the bishop on A3, but that looks ridiculous. First, I'm dropping the C pawn, but also the F pawn could come under fire. So that's a challenge. Queen B6 is coming as well. I don't know what to do with White. I just don't know actually what to do. I'm very curious to see what Magnus comes up with. King H1 looks like it makes sense, but then what do you do? What are your next three moves? How do you improve this position from here?
I'm thinking that if I'm White on a good day, I would like to play bishop d2, bishop takes c6, knight to e5, and rook on a1 to e1. So I'm thinking some kind of a combination of those moves where I develop my rook to e1 and I put my knight on e5 would be what I think Magnus wants to do. Another consideration is like these bishops of opposite color middle game positions. If I play something like this, right? I'm just putting some moves on the board. These bishops of opposite color middle games, right? No, I can't make an argument that this could be favorable for White.
It looks like an endgame also. More things are coming off.
Yeah, no, I don't have an alternative besides bishop d2.
You know what I'm scared of too, Yas?
Yes, please.
What I'm scared of is you putting a knight on e4. Black, I mean, putting a knight on e4.
Right.
Because if, for example, your bishop d2.
Yeah, really, I much prefer king h1, just getting the king out. And now you were about to say knight d6, yeah?
Knight d6. And you probably don't want to trade because of knight d4. If you trade, I mean, knight e4 is going to happen at some point. And even if you put your knight on e5, I want to play knight e4 and then take your knight on e5. This would be my desire. Right. I want to be able to get rid of your strong piece for my piece. I know my bishop looks good, but your bishop's not going to do anything. And my knight will be a forever piece on e4. And then I'll play around this piece.
Just to put so that the viewers can catch up with your concept, is that what you're saying is the knight on e4 is literally unassailable, right? It's like one of those knights that's really, really great, whereas this bishop on e3 might become a septic bishop with literally nothing to do.
And the pawn on e5 is hanging. Although even here, I actually, when you play queen c7, you made it clear that I actually didn't even have to take this knight. I could just put the knight on e4.
I was thinking I was going to take on c6.
No, I understand, and that's why why your move is good. So you played a natural move, queen c7, and that move makes sense because now when you play bishop e3, I can just play knight e4 without even having to play bishop takes knight. So I'm agreeing with this sequence and saying why not just put the knight on e4? We don't need it. The reason I was trying to get rid of it is so you never challenge my knight on e4. But it would take a lot of time for you to do. By the way, we've been in this discussion deeply for quite some time. Magnus has been in thought deeply for all this time while we've been talking and still hasn't come up with a move. He is down. What did we have it before? 7.5 minutes? Now he's down over 11 minutes. And finally, he has come up with your move, bishop d2, that you mentioned quite a while ago, by the way.
Well, if you've got nothing else to do, king h1, bishop d2. By the way, I think we started at a 3-2 time advantage for Pintala, but at the end of the move, it became greater than 2-1. Quite a lot of time. But now, having said that, the position pretty simplified. So I don't think it's a factor yet, but it's about to be a factor, Jen. This time differential is really great.
Yeah, but we know Magnus playing moves like rook takes v2 with very little time on the clock.
Wow.
That said, yeah, I mean, I always struggle when I get these structures with white. I mean, a lot of times it's with a pawn on f2, so it's a bit different. But I find that, like, when I used to play the Tarrasch variation of the French defense, I always find it a little difficult to figure out what to do, which was funny because earlier you said you thought it was easier to play for white, but obviously you play the Caro-Kann with black, so you probably have comfort with both colors.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people can relate because, there's a lot of supple possibilities here for black with these ideas of e5 and d4 and queen b6 check, and knight d6 was actually relatively quickly played by Hari, who really wants to press this time advantage, it seems. And now what do you predict? Do you think he's going to move his bishop back to d3?
Yeah, I think unfortunately he's kind of obligated to do that because the e4 square is really, that's a sensitive square. And if I trade the bishop, as we've just seen on c6, the problem is that I can't really compete for the e4 square very well. So bishop d3 seems right. Now we kind of start to understand why I was saying the queen on f6 really kind of gets in the way. There's a potential for an attack on the f pawn with bishop h6, but there's also a potential for like this. And this is the type of thing, now, if there was a queen on f6, suddenly the rook on f1 is in business. Here, there is a tempo for black against the queen. And there's always queen b6 check ideas that you've got to calculate as well. So, and we do see bishop d3 on the board. Did Magnus really take a minute to play bishop d3?
Gotta be careful.
Wow.
By the way, take a look at the barn burner between Hikaru and Jan. And I think that something happened on the way to the grocery store, because look at this. After we got to the position after C5, knight to C8, and we were saying pawn up, but the knight on C8 does not cut an impressive figure. Rook A D1, bishop to E5.
Queen F4, bishop to E5.
Sorry.
Right? Sorry. Yes.
Rook A D1, Queen E8, Queen F4, bishop to E5, Queen E4, Queen C6. Funny maneuvers going on. Queen E3, giving a second pawn on B2, bishop C4, and now D takes on C5. Is that a third pawn? That's a third. That's a third pawn. And now F takes G6, and you'd expect H takes G6 to be played. He has a Queen G6, which doesn't look likely, but he's right now down 3 pawns. The C5 pawn, knight takes C5 is playable. I'm not playing Queen C5 and going for an endgame. But what's happening here? Naka looks much more perky right now than he did before. And he's a little ahead on the clock, but by not that much. But it's 3 pawns at the moment it's only 2. But we know he's going to take back on G6. What is the evaluation? White's pieces look great. HG6 has been played. White's pieces look fabulous, but he is 2 pawns down.
Right.
But I'm afraid of the light square attack. Knight on C8 tells me there's going to be a light square attack that if White can take advantage of it, then could be issues for Black. Is there some kind of tactic on F7?
Exactly. That's what I'm looking at.
Yeah, I know, right?
I'm thinking Rook F7, like Rook F7, Rook F7, Rook D8 check, King G8. Is there something here? Do I have a nibble? Queen. No. Can I go Knight C5? And
by the way, I saw Queen F2 in this line, hoping to pick off the bishop on B2. Unfortunately, there's both bishop F6 and Queen F6 dealing with that idea.
What about your Queen H6 move? Was that bishop G7 also? Yeah,
because
I
was trying to
game after game.
Wait, doesn't Queen F4 pick off the rook on B8?
Oh, geez, talk about blindness. I do apologize.
Bishop G7, Queen F4.
No. Before, just immediately, there's a Queen F4. And where do you put your king? No, you have to move your queen probably.
Well, bishop F6, queen
Bishop F6.
takes. How many pawns do?
Yeah, back to the pawns again. You do have 2. You have 2.
Yeah, but now Black should have some attacking chances. Like, I guess you have to play knight 6 to save your knight. But then suppose I play rook F8 or rook G8.
And look at this. The king is like somehow beautifully defended in the middle of the board.
Laughing.
That's hilarious. That's a very funny
With
variation,
C4,
guys.
C3, C2, C1 on the works, and White's pieces are overstretched.
I want to go somewhere besides rook F8, but it doesn't help. What I really want to do is like get a check on G8, but H8 is covered by the bishop. So this is
a crazy position.
But you have that same, like, my gosh, isn't, rook F7 on tap here? But whatever it is, you got to be quick because the knight is coming to D6. Does it make any sense to toss in, I don't know, bishop D5? I'm assuming the queen has to go to C7.
And now you don't have that F4 check anymore, right?
Right, exactly. You still have bishop F6 to defend against queen F2 check as well. And you also don't have the rook D8 check idea.
Right.
Well,
there is knight D6 in that position.
These lines are so messy. Rook F7, Queen E6, Knight D6, and then if Rook takes D6, Pawn takes D6, and the Queen on C7, a hero again.
By the way, Naka's face is going through gyrations as you are showing those lines, Jen. As you're saying them, it feels like the frustration as you solve one move followed by the next. Naka is showing the frustration on his face as he sees the moves. He's like, whoa, what? Oh no, he's out of there too with that. And there's another move he's defending with. What's going on? You can just see Naka senses something here, and yet every forcing line is leading to okay for Black.
Well, it's like it really feels like there's something, but sorry, Jen, I missed exactly what you were saying. Could you repeat yourself? Because it's.
Oh, I was just showing the line where you were showing a line after queen c7, bishop f7, rook f7. I mean, sorry, bishop f7, rook f7, queen e6. Yes. I was saying knight d6, and then rook takes d6 doesn't work because pawn takes d6, and the queen beautifully defends laterally.
Gotcha.
And then I guess you have to try queen g6 instead, but black's up a whole rook, so yeah, that's. You're not gonna.
I kind of have to give up the line there. Does it make any sense the other way?
Bishop takes f. I mean, rook takes f7. You mean?
Yeah, rook. No, I don't.
Try it. Come on, we get to analyze. Just try the move, and then play a queen attack.
Queen g6, yeah.
And now queen takes on g6, and
now
you're up
rook f1 can be met by rook f8 or even e5.
And you're going to be up a piece after bishop takes f7, right? In the end of the day, black.
No, up a rook. Oh yeah, up a piece.
Yeah, well, once you take on f7, yeah.
Exactly.
But can you move? Can you move though in this position? Like bishop e6 is what I want to do. That's the most ridiculous move I could think of. I just don't want you to push.
I think this pawn's coming home, huh?
But the knight is coming over to g5. I can bring my knight to swing all the way over while you're sitting there. I know it's ridiculous.
Wow, fascinating position. Insane.
Okay.
Oh, what about knight d2? Okay, it's crazy. I agree.
But
it's a nutty idea.
Crazy position. Okay, but Hikaru, much like ourselves, is struggling to come up, and he knows he has to hit now, because if black gets to play knight d6, and I don't even know, maybe even e5, e6, or just simply bishop d4, he'll consolidate and he'll be better. So it's here.
No.
Oh, what?
Guys, looks like Magnus is going to go 3-0 today as Pentala blundered in one move. Literally in one move.
Oh, he did play e5, by the way.
He got e5 in. He got all that stuff. Take a look. Takes. All this he got. Queen, knight, beautiful square on e4, bishop e3. And this move, knight c5, rook f1, he can't hold his knight and the back rank at the same time. Queen c8 is going to be a problem. Queen c8 is going to hit the knight on c5.
Right.
Even if you play queen e7, queen c8, bishop f8, we can take bishop f8 is playable. You could take on f8.
Right.
That's
and then, and that's an easy winning position. So after rook f1,
he had to give him his queen.
Oh no! Now he's in a lost position.
Overworked queen, right? You know, you needed your queen to guard the back rank and the knight on c5.
One move, knight c5, blunder, and Magnus is going to coast now.
For Harikrishna, this was actually 2 losses and just 1 draw. And I think he was losing against Levon. We just didn't get a chance to look at it, but it was 2 knights versus 1 knight, remember? And the knight got stuck. But I think Levon, so for Harikrishna, day 2 has just been horrendous, a disaster. And where were we?
Have drawn their game. So unfortunately, we can't analyze that. Rook and 2 minors versus rook and 2 minors, Maurice.
Oh, wait a minute. This is fascinating.
It's drawn.
Lanier.
It's already drawn.
Lanier versus Ali Riza Firouzja. Okay,
that's a good one. That looks like a crazy game. What's going on here? Rook h6 just played.
Okay, you gotta like it. The junior is showing some moxie here with this rook h6 rover. Jen.
This one's amazing. What a sick game. By the way,
28, safest square.
And by the way, the queen is on b1. Sorry, Maurice, please.
Hikaru finally made a very direct move in his game. Well, maybe it's not totally direct. He played queen h6 after much thought. Queen h6, he's basically saying, if you play knight d6, it's like a prophylactic move, right? A preventative. If you play knight d6, I can play queen takes on g6 with check. because of the pin. However, bishop g7, your bishop is hanging.
Right.
And you're
Yeah, you can't.
Wow, that's a weird tactic I haven't seen. So you're saying bishop d5, queen d5, yeah.
Yeah.
Old desperado. But check this out. If he doesn't play knight d6, bishop f7, rook f7, rook d8 is the threat. So, like what?
You're saying he's like four? No, but bishop g7 is an option.
Bishop
as well.
g7, bishop. Okay, yeah. If bishop g7, bishop f7, rook f7, rook d8 check, you're still in some difficulties because I have three majors all lined up on the f8 square. Like all of my tanks.
Yeah, that's quite convincing. I agree with that. Tanks. That's quite convincing. So he cannot
by Korobov.
So he cannot play that way. So that means
and e6.
It may mean that a knight d6 is necessary. And he has found the move. Knight d6 is on the board.
What a tactic. I love this. I love this. Okay, so suppose we don't play queen takes g6.
Your bishop
the problem is if you play bishop to d5, I try to do the same thing as before. I want to coax you to play queen takes g6 so I can go queen takes d5. And if
wow. What a move.
That's wild.
And if I move my queen away to like e3, not e3. So, well, e3, sure, whatever, e3.
Then he just moves his queen.
Yeah. And then
knight takes
I'm
c5.
Solid, but I'm ahead.
You're down 3 pawns at the moment.
Well 2 now, but
right now you're sort of down 2 because a5 is
okay. Fair enough though. 2 is.
This is enough.
Knight d7 there, but you're right. 2 pawns is bad enough. But I mean, I don't know what else does black. That's this is really an extraordinary line. I like this because queen takes g6 is such an important tactic. And honestly, usually when you get to play queen takes g6 and they can't,
it's pretty good. Yeah,
you're usually winning.
Naka's in pain. Exactly. Naka has been showing some pained faces, and look at him right now. He is not happy. He sees that the move does not work. And look how calm Nepo looks. And look at the time.
What happens after queen g6, bishop g7, rook takes d6? Just queen takes queen takes, and then bishop f7. Yeah.
No, queen h6 as a defense, right?
And then we're down. We're just going to be down in exchange. And we can't keep the juice in this position, like by sticking our queen on g4 or something like that.
Nope. You need to move like
you're right, yeah, with that kind of idea.
You need to move like knight to e6 in one move, some kind of superstar move. Just give me 2 moves in a row, knight e6. But without
money and talk.
Isn't that like traveling in the NBA? You just can't travel to the E6
Tell that
square.
to James Harden, dude.
Dude travels on every play.
96 would be so sweet. In today's NBA, they're traveling all the time. If you talk to the old guys. No, this position.
I think he has to play rook takes d6, though. The reality is if black, bishop d5, queen takes d5, maybe white gets some drawing chances, but I mean, that's all play on one goal.
What the heck just happened? He played knight d. Is that on the board?
It's on the board.
Wait, what
that
happened?
is inspired.
He played knight d4.
Oh my
look
God.
at Nepo's eyes. Look at Nepo's eyes.
Is that even legal? It's like, what? Is
kind
that
of
legal?
move? But look at Naka. Naka now is shaking his head. I don't know if this is.
Oh, okay. So bishop d4, rook takes d4.
Right. With the idea
rook takes
that
d4.
if you take on d4, now I've got the check. There's no bishop g7. I've got at least a draw by perpetual. Maybe
and there's some
even
mating ideas even in there.
Yeah, maybe a rook lift will give white the win. So you can't.
And if
take
bishop
on
d4, rook d4, knight
wow.
c4. But yes, if bishop d4,
queen,
rook d4, knight c4, there's rook h4, right? So that's a nice line too.
D4,
but look at this. Isn't something wrong?
Rook
Instantly, queen e4 landed on the board in response to knight d4
and rook f4. But I'm seeing the reputation.
Queen E4.
Isn't Queen
Instantly-
E3 and Knight C4 winning on the spot? Oh wait, there's a Knight F5 possible. Whoa, hold on. I thought Queen E3 check, King H1,
Okay.
and then just play Knight takes on C4. And I just thought that was
That's
winning.
sufficient. Because the rook is pinned, you can't move the rook, right?
But now Knight F5.
But how much are you giving up?
Threatening
GF5, GF5, Rook G4, Pawn G4.
Exactly.
Queen
Oh no, I'm not even winning
Queen
it. The Knight's
Queen
guarding the
E23.
Queen.
Yeah.
The
Knight's guarding the Queen.
Yeah.
So why doesn't this win?
I think it does.
Oh no, wait, what do we? Oh, and Queen G5 is Bishop G7 in that
Yes.
line. Queen G5 is Bishop G7, and you don't get anything. Why doesn't Queen E3 check just win on the spot?
I think it does.
King H1, take the bishop.
So there's no taking on F4 variations anymore.
Right.
And-
And your only idea is Knight F5. There's no other idea.
Oh, yeah, there's no other
like-
ideas.
There's
This is-
literally no other idea in the position.
What a
The only-
tremendous
actually, I
tactical
thought it was-
sequence. Knight to D4, followed up Queen E4. Wow. Just again, chess is not checkers. Maurice said it earlier in the broadcast. You don't have to take that knight on D4.
And
Now,
he
Queen
played something
E3
else. He played Queen F5, F4, and then decided to take on D4
Queen F4.
and play. Wait, really?
This move.
So he's got a lot of pawns. So he's got 2 rooks for the queen, as well as let's count them.
2 pawns. 1, 2, 3, 4.
3 actually, right?
Yes, you're right.
And for the moment, if we can hold on to that D4 pawn, it's not going to be easy because F5 and B5 are both protected by the bishop. So you might get to take that pawn off. But while
no,
you're
this
doing
is-
that, I'm going to try to connect my rooks and start checking you.
This is such a wild position. Sorry, I just have to. I mean, it may take me a while to get the zen of it. I'm really kind of surprised that Jan so very quickly. He has 12 minutes on his clock. Queen.
Breaking news, Magnus Carlsen has won his 3rd game in a row.
Well, we knew that was coming.
And
though.
he
We knew
is
that was
now
coming.
in the clear lead as Wesley So earlier did score that draw against Alexander Grisha.
Yeah,
The,
once Pentala blundered his queen, that we knew that was a wrap up. That was just Magnus finishing the job off properly, as we know he would, as we knew he would. And this move, nasty. Bishop takes D5, rook takes, and simply Queen C4, and that's all she wrote.
Yeah. Pardon me. Yeah. No. One move blunders. And again, this game by Hikaru has just been a rock'em sock'em craziness. I mean, just an amazing game.
But Queen E3 was winning, no? Queen E3, Knight C4.
It wouldn't surprise me that there were other wins, but what you showed, Maurice, golly, I was going to call you Jan there for a moment.
I'll take the
Maurice, what you showed Maurice looked like the cleanest, because eliminating that bishop and putting a check on the board, my goodness. What do we have in?
Which one takes?
What I don't know what.
There's just no. There's one idea. There's one idea here. Maybe confuse them. In this position, Rook D3 is playable. I thought only Knight F5 existed. Rook D3. Try to get the queen away. What else can you do? Put the king on H2, by the way, so you don't have Queen C1 check. Put the king on H2, so you don't have
right here. After check, you want to put the king on a dark square. Oh, that's not going to be nice.
I don't want to, but I'm going to put it
okay.
there. And now when you take rook to D3, and now you don't have a check. But you could take the rook now and take the knight on D4, and then that's a lot of food.
Right. Can I could do it this way as well, right?
Oh, that looks yummy.
Yeah,
that's a lot of food.
That's a lot of food. It's a piece of, it's over.
I think Queen E3 was more clean. What he did in the game, let me go back to the game position for just a second. In the game position, we are achieved.
Yeah, actually, Hikaru just got in the move H5, and
What?
things are getting hairier and hairier. Is H6 now could be played.
Wait,
Probably going to be forced.
Whoa.
Well, it's black's mode. It is black's mode.
Yeah,
Well, I
but
can
why?
take and put my rook. Oh, I apologize. Queen G6. No. I'm trying not to lose a rook. I promise I'm trying not to lose a rook. So check, king and rook. That's a way I can't lose a rook. Oh, that was the other. I was on the stream after yesterday's show. I went on the stream of Hikaru Nakamura, and he was showing like his longest game ever, where he had 2 rooks against a queen and some extra pawns. And it's ironic that he won it with the rook against the queens, the rooks against the queen. But it's ironic that he should have that in reverse now. But sorry.
It's extraordinary though. This is not what Jan had compared to what he has now.
It's not clean. Yeah,
it's just like
not clean.
Unbelievable. Now he has to actually look at he did take on h5. He's still up the 2 rooks and 2 pawns for the queen, but there's gonna be some, I mean, he looks confident that he can technically do this, and I don't doubt his skills, but this is not the cleanest, had all the food in your mouth and eating the guy's lunch for him as well. This one here is just going to be some kind of little bit of technical difficulty. There is a game though that we looked at way back when, and it's still amazing given all these end games on the board. Look at the game between Lanier and Alireza.
A mess.
What is this thing?
It's just a mess.
Straight up nuts with only 4 minutes for Dominguez. Surprisingly, he's ahead on the clock over the youngster in this position.
Huh.
But it looks like black. No, I'm not gonna say it looks like anything.
Like black. No, I love in a French, when I have a knight on f5 and the other guy has a dark square bishop, I'm like in a zone. Now the queen on a6 is terrible. The knight on d6 is a challenge. Check. Let me trade off this knight and open up my queen and play bishop versus knight.
Why did I have? Oh, that was hanging. Whoa! He took on h4 immediately.
Okay.
And he's saying if you take his piece, knight f3 check is coming, and g2 is hanging at the moment. Wait, what's up with this? This looks reasonable.
Oh,
g3, the quick move, no thought to it, allowing a knight to land on f3 with check if you want to.
Ooh, that. Whoa. What's the clock times? 4 minutes and 23 seconds to 2:32. Okay.
This is one of those, the cure is worse than the disease scenarios, because your pawn was hanging. You felt the need to defend it. You could have moved the king, for example, and that the rook couldn't capture on g2. So like king h1 after knight h4.
Yeah.
Not this position, but the actual, right. So knight h4, king h1, avoiding the fork, and rook g2 is not playable because the knight is hanging, and knight g2 is not the end of the world.
Yeah.
Right.
It's not desirable. Yeah. Your knight is a little bit trapped there, huh? And I've got some.
Well, right, as well. It's a weird position, but he did what he did, and now something is dropping on the f3 square. It looks like the knight from h4 has gone there.
As he's eyeballing h5, right? h5, h4. King
to
g2
g2 played.
I'm expecting h4 now by black, but man, this rook on a1 makes a terrible impression. Like what?
H4 just looks natural, and it's
of course
just going after him. So this one still has a little bit of ways to go, even though they're in time pressure. What is happening in Hikaru's game?
Hikaru's game is rapidly simplifying, as it's going to be 2 rooks and 3 pawns versus the queen. Rook e6 was just played, and you can anticipate that Nepo will take the pawn on f5.
That Hikaru will capture f5.
I'm sorry. Yeah, Hikaru will take the pawn on f5 rather. And I mean, does black have reasonable winning chances here, or is that king too airy? Like, can I try to coordinate my rook somehow to attack g2 twice?
Well, that's the biggest issue. Rook g6, rook c2.
Yeah, exactly. Now, a queen takes h4 not on tap because of just rook h6. That's no fun for Naka.
Moves have been played, queen d8 and queen d7.
After rook e6, he did not capture on f5. He actually played check on
No,
king h7.
pawn
Please take
h4
my
is
pawn.
taboo, but he thought maybe queen d7, and he was going to get a pawn despite that. But
Well, wait a
okay,
minute. What
black
was-
move now.
Wait.
Rook f6 played. Okay, that rook looks super awkward, guys.
But wait a minute. You just let black keep an extra pawn? Like what? I mean, awkward or not, I mean, a moment ago you could have had this f5 pawn off the board. Now it's just still on the board. That's great for black. I mean, he's ready to go rook c6 and I don't know, maybe f4, h3 ideas or f4, f3 ideas and expose the white king, and that's what he's done. Black's winning chances just went through the roof, I think. I can't understand. Oh, king h3. So Hikaru is saying, I don't want the f5 pawn, I want the h4 pawn.
Really?
Really? that was my question too. Is that an error of judgment though? Because wow, I'm not sure you want that h4 pawn, frankly. Like, let's say I play.
I mean, I'm not trying to put my king on h4 and never go back home. That just seems like a problem. Like king h4 now.
Okay.
Something like rook c3 or rook g6.
Well, let's get the queen out of here. I mean, the queen bothers me.
The king g7 has been played, so let's.
King g7.
He did take the pawn. Whoa.
Wow.
Whoa. This
that can't be right.
Oh
This
boy.
is just
dangerous.
This game has so many twists and turns, guys.
No,
what do you
because
say now?
this
Rook on rook.
because
which
the king is in danger of getting mated, Jen.
Yeah, mating net. So what? But what move do you play right now? Are you gonna play rook g6?
Well, let's say I play rook here. So
Okay.
I'm threatening to play check and mate
Okay, so let me check you before you mate me.
before you.
I mean, maybe I'll revert to my plan of trying to take on f5, but no, then I think you're gonna win my queen. So if you move your king and I play queen f5, you got rook h6, rook g6, and then you hit me with rook f6.
So something like this is what you mean.
Yeah.
Right? Oops.
I don't understand.
And we've got a result in the Firouzja game.
The result in the Firouzja game, indeed, is what? Linear won?
What?
Linear won the game. Linear won the game on time, I think it must have been on time because the final position looks pretty wild. But we'll get confirmation on that. It does look like Firouzja is low on time. So the story would check out more than him resigning here.
He did not resign here.
But yeah, we'll have to find out the details for you on that. And meanwhile, let's move back to the only remaining game.
Right. I like this move as a preparatory to everything. Rook e6, just kick that queen out. And can we set up this mating net that we've been discussing? Oh,
I know you guys are enamored by the mating net, but I really wanted to play rook e4, rook g4, and then go for rook g6. He's played rook e2.
Also going for a mating net, right? If we take on g2, then rook h6 will be mate.
If we take on what?
Well, if we are allowed to take on g2, then rook h6.
Oh yeah, no, he doesn't want to give up that g2 pawn. That's his last sliver of hope on the board. You cannot give up that. By the way, if you give up the pawn, forget the mate. I'm going to play f4, f3, f2, f1. So you can't let me take this pawn.
So king g3 played. Rook g6 check on the board now. King f3, of course, rapidly.
Quickly, yeah.
But what if we just take on g2 with the g6 rook?
With the g6 rook.
That way you can't take my f pawn because of check.
Yep, the skewer. That is
and
true.
if I start checking you, it's not going to be
It's
enough.
not going to last too long. It shouldn't last that long.
And he took it this was kind of my.
Oh, I see, because he has a rook
recapture.
he has a rook f6 also. He has rook f6. That was the point. You can't take on f5 this way because of rook f6.
Yep. But you do have a queen check, right? Queen e5 check.
Played
Right.
king h7.
Okay, now we're going to take on f5. You can't play rook f6.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
True.
And he's done
And that's
it.
what happened. Uh-oh. All right. What is happening now? This is just so much work.
Rook g3 check, king e2 on well, rook g3 checks on the board. King e2 hasn't been played yet.
You could also play king f2.
King f2, yeah. He
Keep-
played king
keep-
f2.
Keep
King
the
G8.
rook on tap, right? King G8 on the board. Yes, I see it.
Man, Nepo could have won a long time ago.
Wow.
And he's
Talk
now
about
in this thing.
I mean, sometimes you feel like you can really torture your opponent by keep giving them this like droplets of false hope, right? Like you're almost there. You're almost there. You're so close to the draw. We can both taste it. I'm sorry. I'm still winning.
Queen c7, rook e6. That mating net is back, guys. Rook f5 check, rook g6. Old school ladder mate is threatened. How do you stop it? Old school ladder.
Check him. You check him and pray.
You got to check. Yeah.
Check him and wreck him.
And hope that he messes it up. But Hikaru knows he's in trouble. He's feeling the stress.
Yes.
This could be his whole tournament. Losing this game, going 4 points behind Magnus. That's rough.
Who's gone 3-0 in today's
We
games.
checked again. Queen d3 check.
And again, I find it so ironic because yesterday's stream, Hikaru was showing his game that went forever, 2 rooks versus the queen, and
that is funny. And now
he's right in it.
And now king h6, rook f5 check. Okay, so we are ensnaring the king now.
That's it.
there
And he
it
didn't
is.
notice it, and he resigned because rook
He
g6
resigned
and king h7 is coming.
Yeah.
Not
Or just rook
necessary.
h5 check, right? I mean, king g3.
Oh, yeah. What am I
rook
talking about?
h5.
Sorry, my fault. Yes, of course. Rook h5, and that's game. And Nepo finally won that game. Hikaru tumbling terribly.
Oh my
He
gosh.
is way out of the standings at the moment, but Nepo, kudos to him to get that big 2 points. Although his face is showing, he said, nah, I should have won that this year.
Dramatic day for Nepo. And he was always in some kind of insane battle. I mean, he was also the one on the wrong side against Jeffrey Xiong.
And we do have the
very
leader
special
in
guest.
the tournament, world champion Magnus Carlsen is on the line after, well, first we'll see Magnus. Magnus, can you hear us? Magnus, are you with us? Looks like he's not quite hearing us yet. Something has to be turned on.
So apparently he wasn't
Yes.
watching our brilliant analysis of this Nakamura endgame.
Shame on him. Shame on him.
Magnus,
Hello.
are you there? Magnus.
Yes,
Magnus, can you
I'm
hear?
good to go now.
He's just
I
kind
can
of
barely hear. I can barely hear him though.
The
I'll speak a little bit louder.
Do you hear him, guys?
A little bit. I think he's trying to adjust his microphone in his desk.
Making some adjustments. When you're ready, Magnus, let us know.
Okay, I started with video, but apparently I'm not.
Oh, there he goes. Okay, now we
you're coming
heard
through.
something very clearly.
I think
Magnus,
your volume.
welcome back to the show. You know, you had a really bad day today. I mean, it was just awful.
Yeah, I had a nice day, obviously. The first and third game were sort of gifts, I would say, and the second game was a lot of fun. So yeah, a great day, of course.
After yesterday's hiccup with the disconnect, you seemed very relaxed at the start of the day today. Had you just put it behind you?
Yeah, I was obviously very upset yesterday, like losing because of something that's a little bit out of my control. So my main prep today was just, making sure there were backups and more backups for in terms of internets.
So you mentioned the linear game being a lot of fun. Of course, Rook takes B2 was sensational. At what point did that occur to you?
I thought of the idea a little bit before. Here after Rook E2, when I went King H7, I thought maybe Rook B3, Queen E4, and then Rook B2 was winning. But then even with Rook E8, there, maybe Rook E8 before Queen E4. Yeah, I guess Rook B2 probably wins there as well. Oh no, it doesn't. Oh, okay, that's why I was not so sure. But yeah, I guess Queen B5 instead wins. So I mean, after I went King H7, and obviously a huge part of this was the trap that he couldn't go Queen E4, which I'd seen. But I think if he had defended better here, he would have had some chances, especially keeping in mind my game against Alireza in the first the Magnus Invitational, where there was a kind of similar position where I had sacrificed an exchange and I had this beautiful bishop on f6, and then Queen G6 happened at some point and I was mated. So I was really a bit worried that the same thing would happen here, but fortunately it didn't.
Yeah, I had the fantasy of it happening. I saw the construction, and then when you play King H7, it's like flattened. Oh, too bad. But you did get this idea, this tactic. Magnus, we know the rapid portion is extremely important. Winning the rapids generally gives a great edge to the players. Is that some to the player who's in the lead? Is that something that you're conscious of, that it's important to get these points now rather than later?
I'm just trying to have fun and play well. I feel like when I'm in decent shape, I generally get a lot of points, so I'm not too worried about this. Obviously, it would have been even better with an extra half a point yesterday, but nevertheless. You know, I was never like particularly worried about my score. I mean, 1.5 out of 3 or 3 out of 6 that I had yesterday was still fine, and I knew that the pairings were a little bit easier today, so I took advantage of that.
Magnus, I've never asked you this question. It's a question that comes up a lot. People ask me, but I know you know what happened with the Clippers and Denver yesterday, going up 3-1 and blowing big lead after big lead after big lead. What is it that a competitor does to make sure that when you're ahead, you don't falter? Like, what's the competitive mindset that keeps that focus from your world champion chess perspective?
I tell you what, it's very, very difficult, and being a front runner in chess is unbelievably hard. I will just say that I think that just applies to everybody, and it's very easy to play well when you're winning, and you don't have too many scares. But as soon as you lead such a tournament, and like you lose one important game, then you make a draw, then you lose one more, even though you still might have the lead at that point. It's very, very easy to collapse. So I would say I still haven't figured it out, and I see a lot of other guys in tournaments that when they're way up in the standings in these Rapid and Blitz events, they sort of freeze. So that's about what I can say. My best advice is just don't mess up at any point, and you will be fine. But I'm telling you, as soon as you start messing up, it's a slippery slope.
We saw that. Well, congratulations on the best day you could have. Yasser, you have a question?
Yes, absolutely. Magnus, congratulations, of course. You started off on a great footing in the first round today against Levon Aronian. You just played this move d5, and Levon played the move knight d7. You came up with, I think, a spectacularly good move, bishop to d3 to b1. Take us through your thinking at this point. Obviously, you're feeling very good at your position, but if you mess it up, I mean, you could have, things could easily turn against you. So how did you come up with the move bishop b1 versus an alternative?
Well, first of all, I'd missed knight d7. But I guess it's not the sort of position where you're too worried that you're missing anything, because it has to be good. The position just looks too good not to be. And yeah, after knight d7, my basic thinking was there must be something very, very good here. And I soon hit upon this idea that that I just move the bishop, and then I thought putting it on on b1 would be a little bit more accurate than putting it on c2. So it came to me very quickly. But I think the engines say that there are a bunch of good moves, like also bishop e2, bishop f5, castles is great. So I would not accept too much praise there, because anything works. But certainly bishop b5, bishop b1 from an aesthetic point of view is pretty nice.
It really just it all went so very swimmingly.
Yeah, I'll just show one line there, which was important to calculate, which was takes take on f5, take on f5, castles. Instead of e6, if it gone knight c5, then I probably wouldn't want to go queen b4 because of the knight jumping to d3. His position has improved at the very least. So I would go queen c2. And this I thought I calculated nicely. So he goes b4, and knight e2. And here queen takes d5. And so, I mean, you start calculating rook d1, but then maybe there's queen e4, and all is not so clear. So then I started looking at knight to g3, then he goes e6, rook d1, queen c6, and I thought there should be some win, like, yeah, rook d4 and knight h5 or whatever, but I thought if I didn't have to go for it, I wouldn't. But then instead on move 19, I found knight to d4, which is just crushing.
After b4, knight e2, queen takes d5, knight g3, e6. Oh.
No. Yes, sir. Knight d4, e d4 instead.
Knight d4 instead?
Yeah. No, go, okay, knight e2, queen takes d5, knight d4. Not knight g3.
Not knight d3, rook d4, rook d1, and now knight d4 instead. Sorry.
No.
Yeah.
No.
No, knight
d4. Yes.
First.
What should I do? Tell me. On move 19, not knight g3. What should I do?
19, knight e to d4.
19, knight e d4.
Yes, and then e6, rook d1, and knight f5 cannot be prevented.
Got it.
Okay.
Nice.
Very nice.
Got it, yeah.
You're a patient man, Magnus.
You see what I have to deal with, Magnus.
I know.
You have to deal with.
Hey, that's Magnus. Again, congratulations, 3-0. Very, very impressive as you bounce back. Very well done, Jen. Any questions
Well,
for
just
Meg?
great, congratulations, great comeback from day one, and it was always so great to watch your games today. They were very exciting.
Congrats, Magnus. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
And here is how he's done so far, everybody.
There's a lot
Well,
of
we
food
saw
there.
that disconnect versus Xiong Nepomniachtchi, who, you know, that game most likely would have been a draw. But other than that, just a phenomenal performance with 3 wins today, including that gorgeous second round game against Lanier with the rook takes b2 check tactic, which I find like really instructive, the way he talked about how he had planned that with king h7. Because a lot of times kids will look at a tactic that doesn't work and they'll be like, well, that was a waste of time. And it's like, no, it's not a waste of time. A few moves later, suddenly he pounces because he sees it instantly. He'd already analyzed it.
It reoccurs.
Mm-hmm. And I think we have another special guest. Is that right? Jeffrey Xiong?
JX in the house.
Jeffrey Xiong, yeah.
Welcome, Jeffrey.
Yes, hi.
Jeffrey,
Hi, thank
welcome, welcome indeed. I thought I heard him, but I'm not hearing him clearly. Say hello again, Jeff.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. We can. Congratulations on how you've done so far. You had a big win today. Tell us your feelings about playing in the event. We didn't get a chance to speak to you yesterday.
Oh yeah, obviously I'm very happy to get this opportunity. It's always been a dream of mine to compete in the Grand Chess Tour. So to receive this, really hoping to make the best of it and learn a lot from playing these top guys.
Now your win today was really nice. The one against Nepo, that was sweet. Now you took a lot of time at the point with your knight on c2, and it looked like you were looking for the kill. Was that what was going on? Because finally you decided, you know what, let me just back out and take this bishop because his king can't castle. But what was taking you so long at this point?
Yeah, actually, I was a bit frustrated because I was sure that bishop c4 has to work somehow when, I mean, his king is all the way up the board, and I have queen, knight, bishop, and potentially my 2 rooks can come in. But I didn't actually figure out how to do it during the game. So I started looking for maybe more cleaner ways, I guess, to, you know, just restore the material, and then I should have decisive attack. So that's what I ended up going for.
Not every day you beat a world-class player in 21 moves with the black pieces. That must have felt sweet.
Yeah, well, I think it was certainly a gift from Nepo because, okay, I played the Alekhines defense just hoping to get a game, not imagining anything like this. But basically, I think he wanted to punish me, so he decided to take on b7 because it's probably the only way he can hope for an advantage. And unfortunately for him, it's just busted after knight db4.
Cool. Well, congrats. I have one topic that I'm going to indulge myself and my basketball fandom with. I know the question is, does Mike D'Antoni stay or does he go?
I think a lot of coaches in the offseason are going to have to go. And probably he's one of them. So, yeah.
I bring, for those of you internationally who don't know what I'm talking about, Mike D'Antoni is the coach of the basketball team, the Houston Rockets. They were bumped from the playoffs. And I know that Jeffrey's living in Houston is a big basketball fan. We've talked about this before. So you think he's got to go? And what about your tandem of Westbrook and Harden? Are they going to stay together?
Well, I have to correct one thing. I'm actually from Dallas, so I'm a Mavericks fan. I'm a big Luka fan, not Rockets. Fault. Yeah, but I still have an opinion on the Rockets.
Gotcha. All right, you're the Luka Doncic crowd. I don't know.
Hey.
Okay, I mixed that up.
Good news, everyone. You're going to have a lot more chances to see Maurice and Jeffrey talk basketball because, Jeffrey, we're going to see you not only in this event, but in 2 events in October. a lot of the times you have conflicts with the U.S. Junior closed, but this year you're going to be the top seed in that event, right?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And then, of course, you're also going to be playing in the U.S. Championship as well. I have a question about this time of lockdown. Have you picked up any new hobbies or interests, considering that like everybody's lifestyle changed so much?
To be honest, not really. Generally, for me, it's chess and it's sports. So I can still been able to do those things. Haven't really dabbled in some other things.
Well, it's great to have you, and we're excited that we're going to be able to call so many of your excited games this summer. Is anything else to ask?
No, just congratulations. A miniature against Jan was really nice. And I'm with you 100%, Jeffrey, that I think Bishop C4, Queen D3 check had to be winning. Like you, all of us, we were frustrated because we didn't see the knockout blow. And we thought that you made a really, really good practical choice with Rook B6 and Knight takes C6 as you did. And you played Queen D5 and won prosaically. Sometimes when you don't see the win, you got to give it a rest. But a really, really nice victory. Well done.
Well, it turned out well, Yaz, though, because then there was a synchronicity with Magnus Carlsen's win and Rook takes B2. So it all worked out in the end.
It certainly
Good job. Good job, JX. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right, see you. Thanks.
JX from Dallas.
Cool young man. Got a variety of interests. Well, at least sports interests. That is, I know he's a big sports fan and practitioner as well. He is got a ways to go, but you do notice that he's tied with Grishchuk and Nakamura. Not bad company to keep. He's certainly not at the bottom of the scorer's table. But who's at the top? Well, we can see it's one Magnus Carlsen who got a bunch of twos there. Two. That's 2 points for every victory he had today. Nobody else could possibly replicate that accomplishment.
That's right. He brought out the broom, did Magnus Carlsen today.
And Nakamura's face, you look, this is the pained face of a man who just did not find his A game today.
As I believe this is from his game with Nepo, the end. That was the Queen versus the 2 Rooks game, where we thought the Queen, he was going to put up some better resistance than what he did, and he ended up getting outplayed and losing.
I thought at first that we were having an interview with him, and I was like, no, that's a replay. He doesn't look that upset when he has to sit through an interview with us. Just a little bit upset, not really upset.
Not really.
He's got to find his rhythm. He has not found it so far in this event. He lost on the first day, first round, right away, to Magnus in that big pairing. And to lose again, you can't afford to lose again, basically. You just can't.
Yeah.
And he's just hasn't found that scintillating form that is typical for him. But tomorrow he'll have another chance.
And then the blitz,
Close
which
it
we all
out.
know is Nakamura's bread and butter. I mean, the best thing for him is if we could add a third column, bullet chest.
Right.
Indeed.
Then he can have plenty of time to find his random.
The problem, Jen, is that Rapid is 2 points each. So round 7 through 9, there's 6 big points up for grabs. Magnus took all of his 6 today. Naka has to look to keep the pace. He cannot let Magnus keep running it up. Man, he's nothing to do about it right now because he's 4 points behind him with these 3 rounds to go. He's got to hope that Magnus has a hiccup and the other players as well, so that he just can close the gap just a little, maybe down to 2 points. If he gets it down to 2, he has a chance. It's at 4.
Magnus himself
I don't see
said,
it.
don't mess it up.
Don't mess it up.
That's right.
But this has been an amazing day. It's gone by so fast. So many great games. I can't wait till tomorrow. Tomorrow we are going to close out the rapid portion of the St. Louis Rapid and Blitz. And it's going to start again at 12:50. That's St. Louis time. Yaz, Maurice, see you same time, same place tomorrow.
Absolutely, Jen, Maurice. It's been a pleasure. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your day with us. Join tomorrow and tell your friends where you're hanging out. Good night, everyone.
That's right. Thanks for watching.